Hallelujah. When I heard there was a secret chord that they had played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do ya? And it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah. Ooh, got the fire going. It's not quite a fire, it's just a 3-burner candle. Let you guys see it. It's just a 3-burner candle. But it does put off a pretty decent amount of light. I couldn't stand to be right next to a fire right now because it's just too muggy and warm out here. I mean, it's not bad, honestly, right now. It's temperate enough. I can sit out here. It's fine. I'm not sweating, which sucks when it's nighttime, dude. That's just the worst kind of fucking weather to be in. It actually feels nice out here right now. But if there was a fire going, I would be way hotter. I would not be able to tolerate it. So just the candles. But they do help with the mood, I guess you'd say. Got a campfire vibe tonight? Exactly. It helps with the vibes. We're not exactly sitting around a campfire, but we do get the vibes because we've got the 3-burner candle. But yeah, I wanted to do another stream because I had family visiting earlier when I was streaming, and I knew I had family coming over, but I didn't know exactly when. And so I waited for a while, and then I was like, oh, fuck it, I'll just go ahead and do one. Worst comes to worst, I have to cut it off short. And that's what I ended up doing. And it's, on the one hand, it kind of sucks because, like the visit didn't end up being very long. It's not like they stuck around at the house for like 2 hours or something, but I'm still glad I got to see them. I'm still glad I got to visit with them and everything. But that just means that we're going to have to talk about the same shit we talked about a few hours ago, today, here, right now. Namely, Epstein, like the Epstein case where Trump is literally like begging Maga to quote, drop the obsession, unquote, with Jeffrey Epstein and the files. He's also threatened to revoke Rosie O'Donnell's fucking citizenship. Literally. And she's committed no crime. She's like, she hasn't taken the steps to renounce her citizenship or anything. So she's basically just threatened with de-Americanization because she has the gall, the temerity to get out there and say what she thinks. This coming week is going to be bad with heat. Gonna have a day at the East Coast on Wednesday where it's going to be triple digit, but the coast will be in the 80s, way much better. Oh my God, yeah. Yeah. Brace yourselves. Summer is coming, that's for sure. Why would Trump want to revoke Rosie's citizenship? What did she do? Out of loop, what she did? Oh, literally, all she's done is be a long-time critic of Trump. That's it. She's been a long-time critic of Trump, and she's in the process of moving to Ireland. Now, I haven't heard if Rosie O'Donnell plans to revoke her U.S. citizenship. I haven't heard plans on her end to give that up, and it's an incredibly arduous process. So the fact that a president is now willing to skip through all that red tape and to just say, nope, you're not an American citizen anymore because I don't like you, and I don't like the things you say about me, and I don't like the mean things you say. That is an incredibly dangerous precedent to set, no matter how stupid you think Rosie O'Donnell is, no matter how insufferable you find her presentation style, no matter who you are or what position you're in society or with your politics, you should be worried about the fact that Rosie O'Donnell is being threatened with having her citizenship stripped from her merely because she's a critic of Trump. What's up, Alton? Doing pretty good. We're sitting here with the campfire vibes tonight, We've got a little weed, we've got a little time. What more could you ask for? You made it to this one? Good job. What's up? Make sure you guys are hitting that like button as you come in, by the way. It really, really, really helps. It's the best way you can help the channel without paying a single dime. Every single time you hit that like button is another chance for the stream to get even more viewers and for the viewing experience to become even better by virtue of more people participating in the chat. So please, hit the button, share this around, do your thing, you know? But yeah, no, she didn't do anything specific, Ignore. She didn't commit a crime. She didn't advocate for the commission of crimes, literally. As near as I can tell, all she has done is been a critic of Trump, in very much the same way people like me and you have been a critic of Trump. And so, in my mind, this establishes some kind of, well, not just some kind of precedent, it outright establishes a precedent by which an American precedent, or an American president, rather, can simply, like, make a political enemy, like, make a potential political prisoner out of any citizen. Like, you guys realize what this means, right? If President Trump can decide you're not a citizen because you criticized him, then, okay, not only does that mean that Trump can be as authoritarian as he wants, and he can arrest anybody and lock up anybody just for disagreeing with him by pursuing revocation of their citizenship, this also means that when Trump inevitably loses the next election, because I'm sure he will try to run again for a third time, but when he inevitably is constitutionally blocked or loses, and the office ends up going to a Democrat, you can bet your fucking ass that if that same precedent has been established with Republican presidents, that they're going to do it on the Democratic side too. Like this is one of the things I don't get about conservative advocacy when it comes to, like, issues of civil rights and things, because the whole idea of civil rights is that it protects me, you, and everybody else alike. If you get this idea in your head where we can treat this group a little bit differently because they're undocumented migrants, or I can revoke this person's citizenship because I don't like them and I don't like the things they say about me, you have established a precedent by which your country can make a political prisoner out of anyone it chooses. That is fascist shit. That's textbook fascist shit. Why are you in a dress? Is this a joke? It's not a dress. It's just a shirt. It's just a shirt with lacy shoulders. And no, it's not a joke. I did read some conservative reactions to that tweet, and most of them are calling it nuts. Well, good. Thank God they're calling it nuts. That's the thing, bro. Trump is unhinged. Trump is unhinged, and you do not have to be a crazy lefty like me to see that. There are plenty of conservatives that have been for about a month now going like, are we sure we really want to keep supporting this dude? Like, does this dude really represent any of the things that we voted for him for? Motherfucker said he was against war. Motherfucker said he was against war. Turned out to be perfectly willing to be complicit in strikes against Iran. Motherfucker said that he would protect the American economy, and he has in fact been tragically bad for the American economy. These tariff wars have caused the stock market to go up and down and up and down and up and down. They've also already begun to make prices higher in certain retail establishments and in certain restaurants. So, but not only that, he's going back on some of his most fundamental fucking promises, and now he's doing shit that nobody even figured he would do. He's doing shit that nobody even accused of him, that nobody even accused of being part of his plan. He's now going after people's citizenship on the basis of their criticisms of him. And with the Epstein shit, with the Epstein Files shit, he is now telling MAGA and the rest of the American people, don't care about that, don't worry about that, get over it, was his exact words. So he's telling us to get over it. This thing that he used as a political football all throughout 2020, all throughout 2020 to 2024, and all throughout 24 itself. He's used it every fucking year for the last 4 years as part of his campaigns. He's brought it up constantly. He can't help talking about how, or he couldn't help talking about how the Epstein Files need to be released and how we need to find out what's going on with that. We need to figure out where are these high-level politicians that were involved in this incredibly complex pedophile cult or whatever was going on. And now it's just a non-concern. Now people that are like voted with him are supposed to just ignore it and give up. That's the message. That's his message to you guys. So, like, with everything he's been doing, even if you leave the ICE raids out of it, which are massively unconstitutional and illegal, even if we leave the ICE raids out of it, just the shit Trump has been in the news for today alone, in my opinion, makes him worthy of impeachment and removal from office. Dump Trump? I 100% agree. Dump Trump. I get my politics through Shane Gillis and Mac McCuskey. Well, I will tell you this much. You shouldn't get all of your politics from one person or another. You shouldn't get all of your news coverage from one person or another. I do have like a primary source that I rely on for like everyday political content and things like that. But when it comes to like a breaking news situation, I go to a huge variety of sources. From Fox News and Sky News Australia to fucking CNN and the Huntington Post and Washington Times and the New York Times and shit like that. NPR, Associated Press. I will look at any news source I have to get a wide enough view of all the different things, because all these different news sources end up contacting their own sources. Some of them share sources, but others don't. Some of them get different information out of the same sources, and so if you can read through like 5 to 10 news articles on a specific matter, you can get a really well-rounded idea of what actually happened. I listen to a variety as well. You have to, in my opinion. If you're gonna stay a healthy consumer of political content, you have to absorb a wide variety of sources. Diverse sources help diverse tactics, 100%. 100%. Diverse sources help diverse tactics, and diverse sources also give you a wide base of information to base your thoughts and feelings off of. There's also the good old Sun Tzu thing, in order to win against your enemy, you have to know your enemy, right? And if you're like a leftist commentator like I am, you have a vested interest in reading right-wing news sources and absorbing the information that they have to say, and of taking note of the slant, because that can help you a lot when it comes to figuring out your arguments against conservatives. It can also help you figure out little perceptual differences that someone might come away from after reading 2 different articles. And that sort of thing is responsible for a lot of the mismatched tension and vitriol, I guess, between everyday Americans, is that we're all reading so much different shit, and so many of us are basing all of our narrative off of one person or another, off of one news program or another. And so people have like this one editorial staff slant, and that's their whole politics. That's not healthy. That's not a great way to engage with the world. Is this a man in a dress talking about somebody else? No, this is a woman in a blouse talking about shit that she wants to talk about. Now you can either make another alt and pursue? Maybe I was going to say pursue. Either you can make another alt and you can pursue a conversation in good faith, and we can try to have something like an actual conversation, or you can keep getting banned by making silly offhanded comments about the way I look, or the fact that I'm a trans woman that has the gall and temerity to talk online about politics. Listen, I'm not the only one. Just because I'm the only one you found tonight doesn't mean I'm the only one. And just because you have vitriol for me doesn't mean I'm going to shut up. I'm sorry, I just don't know how. Are you a sugar plum fairy? Is that some kind of weird euphemism? By the way, there's 96 people in here. If half of you guys liked the stream right now, we would have like 49 likes in like half a minute. So please hit that like button. It is literally the best way that you can help this stream out without donating any money whatsoever. So please do that. Anyway, what do you like? Seriously though, like, do you guys not see? Do you guys not see the scam for what it is? I mean, like when Trump says something like, "I'm gonna revoke her citizenship because she's a threat to national security for ambiguous, vague reason that I can't point out, even though she lives in Ireland." Do you guys not see how that is literally a march towards, you can have political prisoners in America now? But why, dude? Life is difficult enough. You realize my life was way more difficult when I wasn't out as trans, right? I mean, for me, a profound amount of life's difficulty for a lot of years came from the fact that I had to present a totally different way than how I actually identified, how I actually felt inside. I had to maintain behaviors that were typical of a gender identity that I didn't identify with at all. And that made my life way fucking harder than any transphobia I've experienced as a result of my coming out as trans. Now, granted, I haven't really gotten to experience that much IRL transphobia. I'm sure more will happen as I get older, but I really haven't had to worry about that much of it IRL. It's mostly dirty looks and shit like that when it comes to IRL transphobia, but I give a fuck what. I give a fuck less what your face looks like. It ain't my job to fix your face, you know, and it ain't your job to be pleased with everything I do, you know, so I don't really care if you're just giving me a dirty look. I don't really care if you, like, don't care to gender me correctly. I think that says way more of you than it says of me. Like, I don't feel like you make me a man by calling me he, him, but I do think that it makes you look like a bit of a bigot if you've been corrected and informed. If you've not been corrected and informed, then whatever comes natural to you, I'm gonna, like, take it. But if it's he, him, I'll correct you and be like, hey, you know, no. But a lot of people don't like even that level. It's always Trump. Y'all fools cry about anything. Y'all fools do not seem to recognize that you guys are being betrayed by a politician right now. Unless you're like a politically uninvolved person that's just making fun of me for being involved in politics whatsoever, in which case, whatever. You can be tuned out if you want to. You know, like, I'm not going to convince you to care about something you don't care about. But if you're talking from the standpoint of someone who supported Trump, and you're now coming on here talking about, oh, you leftists are always complaining about Trump, I can't help but find that incredibly rich, considering the fact that Trump has now betrayed you guys in a fundamental way. Trump has told you guys, get over, that was his exact words, get over it, when it comes to the Epstein Files. So his what is it? I forget who she is, the AG or something. Pam Bondi comes out and says, what you've gotten in regards to the Epstein case is what you're gonna get. Don't expect anything more. Get over it. Deal with it. Get over your obsession. This is some of the language that we're hearing out of the White House and Trump's associates in regards to the Epstein Files. And that, I'm not even a Trumper, and that fucks me up. I'm not even a fucking Trump supporter, and that fucks me up, because I'm still a member of the American public. And I, just as much as anybody else, has an interest in what the fuck that document contains. Because if it's a long list, if it's a long laundry list of American politicians who have been involved in deep levels of corruption, some of it involving the abuse of children, I think every fucking American citizen deserves to know that, regardless of how they voted. But I think it's particularly fucked up that the very people he betrayed are still, you know, I'm shocked that Trump has any supporters willing to come out in an internet chat and talk about why they support him. I'm just shocked about it. At this point, I really have to start wondering, like, how far does the veil have to slip before you see what's afoot? Hey, Mrs. Tiffy77, tell me you're too stupid to engage in a political conversation without telling me you're too stupid to engage in a political conversation. I didn't take it to the shit talking, by the way. I just want to say that. Miss Tilly took it to the shit talking. But if anybody else wants to have a kind and respectful conversation, well, it doesn't have to be kind, but if anybody else wants to have a somewhat civil and respectful conversation, or at the very least even, you know what, I would take fuck civil, fuck any of that. Does anybody want to have like an actual conversation, period? Is there a single person on this chat, besides my mods, capable of actually having a complex conversation with me? That's what I'm wondering. Because if you're not, I understand, not everybody's got the same level of education, but it's really, really, really fucking frustrating to know that the 60% of American adults who read at or below a fourth grade level have apparently passed they've apparently passed that terrible inheritance down to their children. And I fear that it's an inheritance they inherited from their grandparents. I fear the statistic might actually be worse than that. You're not the smart dude. Stop trying this hard. Literally misspells your to tell me I'm an idiot. This shit writes itself. I don't even have to respond. We want the criminals exposed, but they will expose the victim. We want the criminals exposed, but they will expose the victim. What do you mean? What do you mean, Doug? I'm not 100% sure what you're trying to say there. It sounds like you might be trying to have a conversation, but it's hard to tell what exactly you're talking about. I can have a convo when you stop blaming Trump, brud. Bro, you can't have a conversation about this if you're going to get literally pissed off, ego mad about the fact that I've got criticisms for Trump. I'm sorry, but that's my right as an American. You've got criticisms of Joe Biden, not that I voted for him, but I'm sure that you've got criticisms of Joe Biden. I'm sure that you had criticisms of Obama, who I would have voted for. I'm sure you have criticisms of Gary Johnson, who I voted for in 2016. None of these things mean that we can't have a conversation. In fact, I find them incredibly important reasons to have a conversation. Leave Joe alone? Well, I guess we really should at this point. I mean, the old man is struggling with cancer after all. Cancer, by the way, that he's probably had since the beginning of his presidency. Love the stream? Thank you. I appreciate that. Make sure you guys hit that like button and share the stream. Those are the two best ways you can support this channel without ever donating $1. Literally, just sharing the stream, liking the stream. Those two actions do a shit ton for the YouTube algorithm. And they tell YouTube, hey, she's doing something right. Send more people her way. Let her argue with conservatives till the fucking cows come home. Tell YouTube that right now by pressing the like button. Let's just say it. Trump is kind of mid. That's what I'm saying. At the very least. I mean, I would argue that he's like worse than mid. But let's talk about the honest truth of Trump. He was an anti-war president right up until he allowed the United States to strike Iran. And arguably, I think him continuing to support the genocide in Gaza also counts as not being an anti-war president. But you also have to consider that within the context of the fact that no other president ever does anything about Israel either. So it's, in my opinion, you have to, it's almost like you have to, like, if you're just talking about the lesser of two evils, kind of like, is this a relatively good guy in the comparison? It's a frame of reference thing, right? Establishing that helps you establish the frame of reference. And, you know, now you can't say that about Trump anymore. He's not an anti-war president. He has actually helped Israel ramp up their bullshit in the Middle East. He has continued to ship Ukraine weapons. He has continued to waffle on a diplomatic solution in Ukraine. And I think all of these things are proof, literally like textbook proof of the fact that he has abandoned whatever ideals he had in that direction, right? And that's fucked up because up until like 4 months ago, I would have said Trump was a mixed bag. I would have said Trump was like a pretty mixed bag. 2 or 3. In fact, you can go watch me like 2 or 3 months ago talking about Trump like, mixed bag. Yeah, I think he's pretty authoritarian in a lot of ways. Not a big fan of the mass deportation thing, but mass deportation's been a policy of America for a long time, so whatever. It's not surprising it's ramped up under Trump, but, you know, at least he's not starting any more forever wars. I can't say that anymore because now we have significant amounts and, mounting amounts of evidence to believe that Trump might be complicit in some sort of plan to initiate regime change in Iran. We know for a fact that Trump is, because it's like a matter of public policy, that Trump is continuing the weapons shipments to Ukraine. So on what grounds can we call him an anti-war president? And I'm not saying that's the only thing that matters, but it's something worth noting when you're considering, when you're putting him up against a person like Joe Biden, or you're putting him up against a person like Barack Obama, you know? I have a question. Shoot, hit it with me. Hit me with it. Sorry. Hold on. Let me turn on the like idiot mode. That'll help. Baby, is that you? What? Oh, okay. Your cousin knows Rachel?
My cousin knows Rachel.
Okay. Cool. Sorry, my partner just walked up and
There's a pair there.
Okay. Good to know. Anyway, now idiot mode's on, so be careful with it. This thing's kind of janky, but how about it? Yeah. Let me light it, and then you can take a drag.
Fuckers.
They're being they're being okay enough tonight. I mean, there's the usual population of trolls, miscreants, and various misinformed weirdos, but there's been quite a few people trying their best to have a conversation. But yes, that person named Lexi who asked if they could, careful with that, because like I said, it's not very stable. But that person named Lexi who said they had a question, please feel free to shoot me your question. Sorry about having to turn on idiot mode, but it just has to happen so that the chat slows down to a readable level. But thanks to everybody who's joined and watching. Make sure you guys hit that like button. It really does help. If half of you guys hit that like button right now, we would have 130 fucking likes like that. So double tap your screen or hit the like button. It should be somewhere over here. I gotta go machine gunner mode. Nice. Thank you, Riley Weston, for the $5. I appreciate that. Myth, the American dream, the new manifest destiny. Today, an America less comparable to its Statue of Liberty and more akin to Ozymandias. Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I think America has fallen pretty fucking tragically short of its obligations to its working class. At least if we're going to take the Statue of Liberty at its word, if we're going to take the preamble to the Constitution at its word, if we're going to take these documents at their word, we should be in a way more equitable society. And the Constitution does not apply to citizens, it applies to persons. It applies to persons. Undocumented immigrants have constitutional rights. Criminals have constitutional rights. I'm over here from DFF and I can never catch them live, but I subbed because Paul was gassing you up. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Hopefully you enjoy the stream. They're definitely not for everybody. Like Paul said, I do have my own style over here. I'm not necessarily just like a copy of Paul. The main similarity between us is one of format. So we both do these sorts of streams where we sit and talk to the chat, talk about the news of the day, politics, philosophy, whatever the fuck we want to talk about. But as far as our presentation style and stuff like that, we're pretty different. As far as the tact we take, we're pretty different. I mean, I am willing to give trolls, I'll say this much, I'm willing to give trolls about 2 miles more worth. How do I say this? I'm willing to give trolls like 2 miles worth of empathy, whereas I would say Paul has like 500 feet, you know? And I would say our requirements for trolls over here are way looser. But it's definitely not for everybody, was the point of that. What is your opinion about ICE? Well, I think ICE is an example of what fascism looks like when it comes to America. ICE is they're basically a gang of... Hold on one second. They're basically a gang of itinerant thugs that roam around America, kidnapping America's farm workers, factory workers, and various other people that Trump has decided to have a problem with. I love you too, baby. And rounds them up into unmarked vehicles and transports them to unnamed camps to go through unnamed tortures. And as near as I can tell, that's pretty much the only point of ICE as it exists right now. ICE has just been given a massive amount of funding by Trump to actually ramp up the shit that they're doing. So it's not going to be long. It's not going to be long before ICE starts rolling out like actual military tech in order to kidnap more undocumented immigrants, which is, by the way, what they're doing. These people are not being given any due process. These people are not being given, there's not any sort of verification process that's happening. They're taking the Mexican that they think looks most like the Mexican they're after and grabbing him up out of workplaces and residential communities and shit. So yeah, I think ICE represents a pretty reprehensible direction in American politics and American domestic policy. Is entering a country illegally considered a crime? It may be, but I don't think it should be. See, that's probably the difference between me and you, right? I don't think that borders should exist, period. But I do think if we're going to have borders, I don't think crossing them in and of itself should be a crime. If you want to say trafficking something illegal into that country is a crime, sure, go after that. Figure out ways to go after that. And in fact, the easier you make the border crossing, the easier it is for you to go after it, because the easier it is for you to fucking wait for them at the fucking border crossing that they're going to use, because it's way easier than fucking trekking through the Mexican mountains. You know? It's It's way easier than wading through the Rio Grande and causing a national scene. It's way easier than digging a giant tunnel under the fucking earth. So I think that that's ultimately what we should do about the border. So me and you probably have a definitional difference as to whether we consider we probably don't have a definitional difference, rather, as to whether we consider it a crime, but we do probably have a philosophical difference in regards to whether or not it should be. I don't think it should be. And even then, criminals are entitled to constitutional rights. And even if they're not, all people are to be treated as innocent until proven guilty. So until you 110% confirm that someone is the undocumented immigrant that you think they are, I don't think you should be able to do any of the fucking things that ICE and the Trump administration are currently just getting away with writ large. Migrants are great Americans? They are. Migrants are great Americans. As long as the insanity on both sides exists, I'll be chilling in the middle smoking a doobie. Well, Tyson, I think a lot more people are in your position than either side wants to admit. Like, I don't know, Tyson, you might feel differently. I consider us to be more similar than me and someone else on what I would consider the far left, which I do consider myself a part of. When it gets right down to it, my philosophy, my politics are all super far leftist. I am definitely a member of the far left, but yet I find way more in common oftentimes with people in the center when it comes to being able to criticize both parties, being able to recognize the problems with both of them. I honestly feel like a lot of people that are on the center are honestly I feel like a lot of them probably are disenfranchised leftists. But I also have met plenty of people that are on the center or in the politically uninvolved, I guess you could say, that are definitely disgruntled right-wingers that are like, fuck this shit, the Republican Party doesn't have our interests in mind any more than the Democratic Party does. So it's a thing that attracts people from both sides for sure. I definitely lean left, but I have conservative beliefs when it comes to gun rights and certain other things. Yeah, Tyson, I think we've talked about some of that before. I mean, I don't know where my opinions on guns actually fall on the whole American political spectrum. I know that I don't think that there should be any type limits. I don't think, if you look at gun crime in America, the vast majority of gun crime in America is not committed with high-capacity rifles. It's not committed with AR-15s. It's not committed with fucking AK-47s. It's not committed with these big, high-capacity semi-automatic firearms. It's fucking handguns. It's fucking handguns that hold 11 rounds in a clip. So why are we, what I don't get about the liberal left, right, is that it seems like there's been for a while a push among liberals to ban guns on the basis of type, and it seems to be mostly based on the assumption that because those types have been used in a few specific shootings, that they are somehow massively responsible for those shootings, when in fact, every single one of these shootings ties back to a gun owner who didn't want to be responsible with their firearm. And that is a problem of gun culture, and that is a problem of lack of regulation when it comes to maintaining and keeping a firearm and things like that. But it is not a problem of access to firearms when it comes to just outright the ability of a regular grown-ass adult to go buy whatever gun that they want to. All of this is to say, I don't care if you have a fucking fully automatic machine gun at home, as long as you've got a trigger guard on it or it's in a safe. Call me crazy. I recommend reading the Book of John. Well, I'm not gonna, because I've already done it. I'm Dutch and South American, but yes, get fucked America. I don't know about that. I'm an American, dude. I need America to stay going strong. I'm not a sir, number one. And yes, I do live in the United States. The good old USA, baby. How do you think I came up to be such a fucking gun advocate if I'm not fucking American? No, well, okay. Nobody from Germany is going around saying you should be able to own a tank or a machine gun if you want to. I was going to say Britain, but then I remembered that, no, we get a lot of our bullshit from Britain. They just fucking dealt with it a lot sooner than we did. And some of the ways they dealt with it, I don't think were entirely the best ways either. But, be that as it may, excuse me. I actually agree with that as long as they're responsible with it and they follow proper gun safety guidelines. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm advocating for. That's what I've always advocated for when it comes to the Second Amendment. I think that there is a responsibility outlined in the Second Amendment for people to be well regulated with their guns, which is to say, store them responsibly, use them responsibly, clean them regularly, maintain them, that sort of thing. Listening to me on your drive home, that's kind of cool. That's actually really dope. By the way, make sure you guys hit that like button. It is a really great way to send this stream out to more people and to make sure that the stream remains as interesting as it possibly can be by increasing the amount of people interacting with the chat. And I thank you to everybody who is interacting with the chat for subscribing to the channel. That's really cool. And one last shameless self-promotion. If you want to make absolutely sure that your message gets read, please consider sending a super chat. It is the best way to make sure that your chat gets read. It's also a great way to support the channel monetarily and show us that you like what we're doing here. Bro has an anxiety pen that he's smoking. And I'm not your bro. But it's actually not an anxiety pen. I just have a nicotine addiction. I couldn't be any less anxious, actually. These have a very calming effect on me. These have a very centering effect on me. What about the overwhelmed public services in cities where immigrants are being put? That's not true, though. Like, you talk to people from these cities, they'll tell you, what are you talking about? There have been a few cities that have been taxed with the amount of, like, increasing immigration that's not even coming, by the way. Largely, a lot of it's not even coming from Mexico. America's policies in South America and Central America have finally been coming to roost. And so a lot of fucking Hispanic people from all over Central America, not just Mexico, have been trying to get into the United States. Most of them, by the way, completely legally. Most of them come in on temporary work visas and overstay them. Visa overstays are responsible for something like 75% of all illegal immigration. It's an insane number when you realize what it is, but like that's the weak point, but nobody wants to get rid of that weak point because they recognize that you actually do need undocumented immigrant labor in order to run America unless you put price caps in place and force these shareholders to eat the fucking loss. You force these shareholders to make less in a year. Sorry guys, you can't make record profits this year. I know, it's real sad. They never have any problem with cutting our pay. That's the fucking thing that gets me about it. When does your boss ever act sad about having to cut your pay? When does the corporation ever act sad about having to cut your pay? For real. I mean, they might pretend to be sad in the letter about it, but they're fucking celebrating record profits just 2 or 3 months later. So they can take endlessly from us. They can take as many pounds of flesh as they wish from us, but we can't demand a single cent of that be rerouted back to the American people from whence it was stolen. I don't get it. As a non-American, you're all basically immigrants, right? Well, yeah, that's the fucked up thing about it. That's hilarious. I love that. As a non-American, I don't get it. You're all fucking immigrants, aren't you? Yes. Yes, we've got no right to be xenophobic. You're 100% right. No American, unless you're a Native American, and like honestly, I would argue even if you are a Native American, but certainly the argument would be more understandable if it was fucking Native Americans making the argument, but it's not. It's white people. It's motherfuckers whose fucking grandparents came over from Germany and Italy and shit that act like they have some special fucking birthright to America that somebody who was born here to Mexican parents doesn't have. It's ridiculous. It's an absurd double standard, and it only exists in the minds... Honestly, I think it only truly, deep down, exists in the minds of the people who fucking spread this bullshit. I think a lot of the people who voted for Trump, I think a lot of people, like, functionally on the right, are way more like tender and sensitive than people would probably give them credit for, or that they would give themselves credit for. When it comes right down to it, they don't like to see immigrants being mishandled. They don't like to see people being housed in alligator Alcatraz, which is why every single time Trump does one of these fucking things where he's pissing off the MAGA base, that's why there's always a big news story about a bunch of MAGAs mad at him on Twitter. Basic human rights shouldn't be a privilege? Not at all. And according to our Constitution, people are protected, not citizens. Well, yeah, I know. Even the Native Americans technically came from somewhere else, but what I'm saying is that it would be more understandable if they were the ones making the argument, because they're the ones from whom the land was originally taken. But Americans, modern Americans, are fucking a result of a long and sordid history of immigration and race mixing and cultural mixing and shit. People don't like the term anymore for whatever reason, but America's a melting pot. It just is. America is a place where cultures come to fuck and have babies. America's a place where cultures come to show each other their dicks and pussies and everything in between. That's what America is. It's what America's always been. It's what America will continue to be no matter what Republican demagogues like Donald Trump have to say about it. Look into UFC fight Ben Askren. His insurance company denied his double lung transplant. He almost died 4 times. He's 4-0 against death. And to think, if a UFC fight gets denied, what'll happen to you? Oh, dude, that's the fucking thing. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, like, if you're not super uber duper rich, and I don't know much about UFC, but I do know enough to know that the average UFC fighter is not loaded. That people at the very top of that game, people at the very top of that might have some money, but that it's not like a bunch of other like professional level athletics where people in that are making just, you know, oodles and oodles of cash. And so somebody like not in the position to just cash out thousands of dollars, or somebody that is, like, that's the fucked up thing, is that even if you're able to cash out thousands of dollars towards your care, unless you're in a very particular group of people, you ultimately shouldn't have to pay that penultimate price. You shouldn't have to cash out all of your fucking savings in furtherance of you just living on another day, especially in on a planet where so many fucking universal healthcare systems exist for us to look at as an example. Almost every other country on the planet does this better than we do. Literally. Almost every other country on the planet does this better than we do. Italy, France, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Great Britain, Japan, Russia, for Christ's sakes, Russia has a universal healthcare system. Pretty fucking sure. You should debate Charlie Kirk. Not interested. Not interested in debating Charlie Kirk. I mean, I guess I might be interested in doing like a traditional debate with him. I would do like a traditional debate with Charlie Kirk, but I'm not gonna do one of these like loaded perspective interviews with him where he gets to edit out, where I don't get to film and he gets to edit out all the portions he doesn't like and gets to make me look like a moron by cutting together my shit in a way that like makes it sound unintelligible, when if you just listen to the original clip you'd get all the context. Not interested in helping Charlie Kirk farm more conservative tears, you know? Not my idea of a good time. Now, if somebody wanted to set up like an actually like organized debate between me and Charlie Kirk, I would do it. Yeah, I'd do it. Like if I get like a guaranteed 5 minutes to fucking respond to what he asks, or to respond to what the moderator asks, and to and we've got like a guaranteed 5 minutes to engage in freeform discussion, things like that, and it's being filmed in its entirety and released in its entirety, I would do something like that. And by the way, that is true for almost any conservative demagogue. I would love to debate some of these people, but not on their terms. I know better. I know better. See, that's the fucking thing. I did this thing recently with a YouTuber named Paul Zigo and their most preeminent hater, basically, named Alchemist Soil. And a lot of people were, a lot of people were bitching about the conduct of me as a moderator, which is funny because Alchemist Soil was not bitching about that during the debate. And a lot of people have been bitching about Paul's conduct in the aftermath of the debate and during the debate. But in reality, it wasn't a debate to begin with. It was a slightly structured argument, and it was 100% on terms offered by us that were made pretty clear as to what it was going to be. Literally, I told Alchemist Soil what piece of content I use as my frame of reference, and I guess he just didn't pay attention, didn't care, didn't read into it. I don't know. I don't know where the disconnect happened, because the piece of content that I gave him to use as an example literally features the exact same tactics that Alchemist Soil failed to dodge being used on someone else, and Paul's doing it again. So people love to recontextualize shit after it's happened, and people love to control the narrative and shit like that. But you don't have to participate in that if you don't want to. And I would never willingly put myself in the position to be fuck-owned like that. Great, another channel who can't even bother to have a one-topic conversation. Bro, we go wherever the chat goes, my friend. We go wherever the chat goes. If you don't like it, consider sending chats that help us stay focused or something like that. I don't know. I've always been more of a middle ground guy. There's some stuff I agree with the right and some stuff I agree with the left. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people right now in America are in that center position because they look at the Democrats and they see a lot of failure and a lot of malfeasance and a lot of corruption, and they look at the Republicans and they see the exact same fucking problem, just reflected in the opposite direction. And they look at the policies of these politicians, and it's very easy for the vast majority of people are not just dyed-in-the-wool Democrats or dyed-in-the-wool Republicans. A majority of people in America don't even vote at all, but they, in my opinion, are indicative of a lot of people who are just sick of the fucking monopoly. But also, that eligible to vote but didn't vote number changes, every election cycle. Sometimes it's a little higher, sometimes it's a little lower. And when it's a little lower, it's because one of these parties managed to activate some of those people and be like, yeah, I agree with enough of this politician's points to want to send them to high office. So that's why I say, I'm a person who used to vote Democrat, and now I say we need a third party. Honestly, we need way more than a third party. We need a bunch of different parties in America, but we need to start with a third party that can convince people that there's another way. There's a better way than just endlessly supporting Democrats and watching them fuck things up just as much as the Republicans did, watching them normalize Republican policy, watching them turn an actual universal health care program into the Affordable Care Act, turn an actual universal health care program that is being suggested and put up into a conservative think tank's version of universal health care. And then on the same token, you've got the Republicans, right, running around locking people up with no due process in fucking unmarked vans with agents that refuse to give their names and badge numbers or refuse to be held accountable in any way to cover up their faces and shit. By the way, I love that none of these motherfuckers could breathe in a mask 4 or 5 years ago. But now that it comes in handy for them to hide their fucking fascist Nazi faces, now, suddenly, all these Trump-supporting motherfuckers, they figured out a mask. They figured out how to breathe through a mask. After 5 years, they couldn't do it for COVID. They couldn't breathe during COVID. But now that there's an incentive, now that there's a way for them to get back at the left, now that there's a way for them to fuck with political advocates on the left and the left of center, they're more than happy to wear a mask. Can you be a mod? No. Why does Confederate history have to be erased, though? I don't support it, but it's something to reflect on and learn from. I don't think anybody's trying to erase Confederate history. Are you talking about the Confederate statues thing? just to clarify. And just so you know, I actually do live in Mississippi, and I actually share ancestry with a Confederate general. So if anyone's going to have Confederate sympathies despite being outwardly leftist, it should be me. So consider for a moment that I might not just be asking to fuck on you, okay? I'm not saying I do have Confederate sympathies, I'm just saying, consider that I might be able to approach this topic with a bit more nuance than your average leftist. Oh shoot, you live in Mississippi? I do too. Where at? Yeah, I attract a lot of people from Mississippi. I don't want to say exactly where at because I'm kind of a controversial YouTuber, you know? Like, I mean, you see the kind of shit I deal with on here. It wouldn't exactly be a great idea for me to give, like, the county I live in or anything like that. Suffice it to say that I live in the northern third of the state. Somewhere between Tupelo and Memphis. Where? You'll never know. Not a negotiation, really. Phoebe will ask. Yeah, Phoebe will ask you if she wants you to be a mod. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, really, I don't ask so much as I... Well, I guess I do kind of ask, but here's how it goes. When I select a new mod, it goes something like this. Welcome, Riley Weston, to the moderation team. You are now... if you want to be, you don't have to be if you don't want to be, but you are now part of the team that helps us keep this a readable, fun place to participate in. And what this basically means is that whenever you've got time, if you're hanging out in the chat anyway, if you wouldn't mind approving comments that come up and it's like show hidden message or whatever, approve those comments so that I can see them and interact with those people as long as they fit the rules, right? And ban comments that don't. Our rules are very simple here. You probably heard me go over them a million times. Readable, original, and interesting. I don't care if it's trolling. I don't care if it's insulting me. I don't care if it's kind of a backwards-ass fascist question. I field those here so that people can hear the arguments. What I care about is that somebody isn't just spamming in my chat or giving me comments I can't do anything with or just being like baseline trolling, you know? And that's what I care about. Ultimately, if we can get through that, we can have a fucking conversation. And that's the sort of comments that I want to weed out of here, is comments that don't follow those basic three. So welcome to the mod team, Riley. I hope you find your stay here to be useful. That's how the speech goes, if you're wondering. The real problem are the radicals on both sides. That's issue number one to be addressed. Well, I mean, I might disagree in terms of like what I think is the most important thing, just in terms of like baseline policy. Because in terms of baseline policy, I would say that the most important thing to be addressed would be universal health care. But, you know, you might disagree. Culturally, you know, maybe the extremists are the thing that's important for culturally. Yeah, I hear you. I'm kind of in Jackson area. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm hours away from Jackson, but yeah, that's kind of cool. Jackson area is cool. Most of my Mississippian fans come from Jackson or south of it. So Rankin County, Copiah County, Hattiesburg, Biloxi, that type of area. Completely understand your point. Yeah, so I'm just saying, like, as far as like actual policy decisions, I think that we've got a lot of, you know, geese to cook before we legislate the extremists out. And I also don't want to legislate the extremists out. There are people that consider me an extremist for the things I believe in. And ultimately, when it comes to what I believe in, it's very basic stuff, a lot of which has been supported by the average American for a really long time at this point. So when I look at my political advocacy and what I believe in and things like that, I don't see some big alien problem that I don't know how to deal with. It just doesn't make any sense to me the way some people react to my politics as if they're inconceivable, you know? I was referring as to how people can't handle a different opinion. Yeah, I mean, like, that's an issue for sure. Like, it needs to be dealt with, and that's honestly part of what we do here, you know? Now, like I said, I respond with vitriol to people who just come at me with nothing but vitriol, but I think there's a difference between giving people back what they serve and not being willing to hear dissenting opinions, because, like, when somebody isn't being just like an outright douchebag, I feel dissenting opinions all day here. It's basically all I do. Find people that disagree with me and argue with them. Even if whether they're people that disagree with me from the left or people that disagree with me from the right, I argue with people who don't like this, that, or the other aspect of my politics, but ultimately find me charming enough to continue interacting with me. And that's my bread and butter, you know? And I think that more and more and more people need to adopt this strategy of, let's just talk it out. Like, all of this vitriol has gotten us nothing. All of this hating on each other has gotten us nothing. All of this viciousness and all of this like negative media coverage and shit has gotten us nothing. Why do you think Trump is a Nazi? Well, what I usually say is not that Trump is like an outright Nazi right now, as of right this second. My thing is that Trump exhibits a lot of Nazi tendencies, and he's engaging in a lot of tactics the Nazis engaged in. I do think that there's a substantive difference between the regime that killed millions of Jews, and extant forms of fascism. I think that there's a meaningful distinction between them, but I don't find that distinction so meaningful that we can't use terms like Nazi in common parlance, right? And honestly, I would have said that you were pretty absurd for saying that Trump was a Nazi 6 or 7 months ago. Like, before Trump took office, and even after, honestly, a few months after Trump took office, it wasn't until like 2 or 3 months ago that I really started to realize, like, oh, dude, this dude is going every bit as authoritarian as people were warning us he might go. This dude is going every bit as fascist as people were warning us he might go. But at first, when Trump was elected in the last 4 years, I've been saying, Trump wasn't a Nazi. Trump had some tendencies, maybe, but he was a Nazi. Maybe he was just too impotent or incompetent to be a Nazi, but he wasn't. Now, I really don't know that I've got a really good justification against, I don't know that I'd be able to justify telling people not to call him that when he's doing so much shit that the Nazis did. He's just doing a friendlier version of it. He's just doing a more PR-friendly version of it. But fundamentally, in my opinion, there's not much difference between gaffling people up in unmarked vehicles, refusing to give any form of identification for yourself, refusing to thoroughly identify them and make sure that they're the people you're after, going after a specific fucking people in your country in general. All, like, Gestapo tactics being used is one thing. Just the Gestapo in general is something that we should be worried about. The fact that ICE now has broad latitude. Now, I did hear something kind of comforting. A judge in California has blocked Trump from the just like massive overuse of ICE raids that's been going on in California. But Trump has he has a track record with these sorts of things. He has a track record for basically wadding what the courts say up and throwing it in the garbage because he's, like I said, a fascist piece of shit that refuses to just go by the rule of law. Like, okay, tell me this. Is it fascist or not to threaten to revoke someone's citizenship because they're a loud critic of yours? I find that incredibly fascist. I find that to be engaging in the act of taking political prisoners. What pronouns, if you don't mind me asking? She, her, hers. Thank you for asking. I don't mind at all. I've outed myself. Yeah, exactly. They basically outed themselves as a Nazi. Literally only a Nazi would find that word derogatory. I mean, that's another problem with people acting all morally offended by me calling someone that. Is like... is that it tends to be revelatory of their own internal political leanings. I wonder how my Latina Ex is doing during all this. Wonder if she good, low-key. You honestly ought to check in on her just to make sure that everything's chill and that she's not getting gaffled up. Because all kinds of people that are naturalized citizens are getting gaffled up and threatened or having denaturalization cases pursued against them. I mean, Trump's threatened doing it to Musk. Trump's literally threatened and kind of intimated that he's seriously considering stripping Musk of his fucking citizenship. Which, by the way, I have decided I'm not going to celebrate if it happens. Because it's more of this. And in fact, I think I was wrong for kind of celebrating it when I first heard the news. Now, I think it was understandable why I did, and I still think it's hilarious how things have turned out. But it's not a good thing that Trump is threatening to revoke the citizenship of his fucking political rivals merely because he doesn't like them, merely because he doesn't like the criticism that they're doing about him. So I'm not going to support the revocation of Musk's citizenship. I don't care what a fucking douchebag he is, because it sets such a horrible precedent. It sets such a horrible precedent. Now, I will say this much. One of the reasons why I've been advocating so hardcore for the last few months, one of the reasons why I keep talking about all this political shit is because I do think the American people are going to need to rise up in a peaceful and organized way and take some actual steps to ensure that big money gets out of politics. Because as long as Elon Musk can continue to buy elections, and other people can continue to buy elections, we are never going to have actual democracy in this country. And that's the main argument that people will use in favor of Elon Musk being deported, is like, well, you should support it even if you're not a Musk simp, because that means that Musk can't fucking, throw his money around in America. Which, by the way, no, it wouldn't. That would not make a fucking dent in it. If Elon Musk really wants to exert political influence in America, there's nothing America can do to him to strip him of the billionaire status that he occupies. He's the richest man on the planet. If he wants to influence American politics through money, he's gonna do it. Unless the American people rise up and change the system. Literally, we have to reform the system so that campaign finance is either campaigns cannot be financed the way they used to be. Either you get like a basic amount once you've got, like, you have to privately fundraise, and you can get no more than, say, $1,000 from any individual donor or something like that. So you have to do grassroots fundraising. You have to get to know your voters and things like that in order to get an edge over the other competitors, but also just to get your foot in the door to have enough petitions to enter the ballot as a candidate. And I think that if you are able to get that, I think you should be eligible for a certain amount of campaign funds. And I think that part of this new reform should be, I don't know exactly what their position would be called, but like auditors, basically, whose job it is to review the purchases being made by these campaign funds and with these campaign funds, and ensure that these campaign funds are not just being used to line the pockets of rich restaurateurs that the fucking politician knows, to make sure that they're not just being used to line the pockets of different little shell companies of that politician. Make absolutely sure that this sort of corruption is not going on, and when it does happen, it's exposed to the public and that politician is ousted. I think that sort of campaign finance reform could actually make a real dent in the ability of people like Elon Musk to gain influence in American politics just by throwing their money around. But it's something that's going to have to come from our collective effort to get it that way, because politicians make way too fucking much money off of these people to ever shut that tap off. They are never going to turn off that sink. Never was political before last administration, low-key, under Biden. He made me realize how outdated and corrupt our system is. I didn't fully see it Trump's first ruling, but this year I see it the most. And I'm late, sure, but I mean, I've woken up from it. I'm young. Bro didn't really consider politics important in my life. Well, a lot of people don't. I didn't. I mean, the older I got, the more important politics became in my life. And, over the last few years, I've managed to actually decenter politics in my life, at least over the last 2 years. I've managed to make other things more central in my life in terms of how I feel and, like my mental state and things like that. It's no longer as reliant on the news and political goings-on as it used to be. But it takes a while to get into politics, and you have to be careful about how much of it you get into, because at a certain point, you kind of get lost in it. I'm a migrant waiting in a 2-year line in Mexico due to the world cutting in line, thanks to Dems. Well, that's the thing. You say thanks to Dems, but what exactly do you think Dems have done that Republicans haven't done? I mean, you realize Kamala Harris ran on a strong border, right? You realize Kamala Harris ran on the fact that her and Biden had maintained a strong border, that her and Biden had deported more than anybody else. Literally, Kamala Harris is the do not come bitch. Do not come. We will continue to enforce our borders. Our border policy has not changed. Do not come. Based, exactly why I support you bringing, exactly why I subbed, you bring up good points. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Sorry, but if you want to get into the greatest country ever, you will have to wait in line with your papers. See, this is the mentality I don't get. Why should someone have to present their papers to get into America? I think you should just be able to get into America, like, like, go work for an American employer. Like, come into America, go work for an American employer, fill out this labor market that we supposedly need so much of. Like, what is with the double narrative, right? When people are wanting to complain about the fact that they can't hire anybody for their shitty retail job, they're talking about how nobody wants to work anymore and how we have a labor shortage. But then when they want to complain about Mexicans, it's all of a sudden there's too many workers. All of a sudden, oh, they're stealing American jobs. They're doing things. And so that's why people accuse, by the way, people that are hardcore against undocumented immigrants. That's why they get accused of racism. Because at a certain point, it really does start to seem like the only distinction to you that matters between them and an average American is the fact that they're fucking Mexican or brown in some other way, you know? And that is just not a good reason to exclude people from the country. I'm sorry. And when you really drill down with a lot of folks, it turns out to not be that. Like, raise your hands. No, this is a no judgment zone. We're not going to ban anybody for it. Raise your hands in the chat if you're prejudiced against Mexicans in some way. If you're willing to admit it. I know nobody's probably going to be willing to admit it, but just raise your hand in the chat if you're willing to admit that you're prejudiced against Mexicans. Let's open the borders wide. It would be one of the greatest economic booms in this country's history. I tend to agree. I support kind of arcane system, but I guess it makes sense to me. So I feel like it could make sense to other people. Basically, I want us to recreate our immigration system so that it's super fucking easy. That there's no big process when you want to come into America. You just come to the border and go through. Like, there's some basic checks that are done to make sure you've got all the vaccinations that an average American your age would. If you don't, then there's like maybe a quarantine period. So we might have to do some infrastructure, work down at the border to make this more feasible. But basically have it to where it's really easy for people to get into America if they want to come up here and work. Because a lot of people that work here in America only do so for like 6 months out of the year. While the harvest seasons are going on, while there's things growing, they'll like move around the country, or even like construction season, when things are being built en masse all over America, there's a lot of Mexican people that come into America, many of them totally legally, with paperwork and everything. Lots of Americans that come into America to work temporarily and then go right back to Mexico at the end of the term, right? With all due respect, having an open border will destroy America. It was happening. It wasn't happening, though. That's the thing. Nobody has ever presented a fucking single good chunk of evidence that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden did anything different with the border than Trump did. They kept building his wall. They kept kids in cages. They kept family separation. They deported something like 10 million people. I think everyone is internally racist in a way. I was scrolling up to read answers to my question. But yeah, I don't think everybody is internally racist in some way, but I do think internal racism is way more common than a lot of people think it is. For example, sometimes I'll be asked if I'm racist, and I'll just say, well, I really try not to be. I try my best not to be, but I was raised in Mississippi, in a place where prejudices against black people are not exactly uncommon, at least out in the country. They're pretty uncommon if you're talking about city people. When it comes to the South cities, racism is a very rare thing. It's pretty much the exclusive venue of, hicks, rednecks, and assorted country folk that live out of the range and out of the bounds of cities, and they have, a different sort of cultural vibe than people that do live in the South cities. And, having been raised in that environment and then moving to Missouri, particularly to an area with a big Klan presence, and, having quite a few friends with weird prejudices and shit, I definitely recognize that there are thoughts that I have that come into my head, and associations that I have with people of a certain race that are not fundamentally based on fact, that are based on a stereotype or a misunderstanding. And I recognize also that being raised the way I was in the culture I was has made me kind of delineate myself and other white people from black people and people of color in a way that I don't think is natural, and so I try to fight against it to the best of my ability, But that's just me being intellectually honest. There's a lot of people who will tell you, no, I'm not racist at all, and then they'll go off on a big, long racist rant, and they won't even have the nuance about it to say, maybe this comes from a place of ignorance, which is what I'll say before going off on some long rant about some, racial issue that I don't fully understand, right? But that's the difference between someone who acknowledges not who they are necessarily so much as where they're from and what the culture that they grew up in is like and what some of those cultural influences would have done, right? For real, recent tweets and video evidence of him has convinced me hella that he is in the files. Oh yeah, Takami, that's the fucking thing. That's 100% why Trump does not want to reveal the Epstein Files. 110% the reason why Donald Trump does not want to reveal the Epstein Files and doesn't want them to be revealed, doesn't want anyone to hack and fucking leak it, literally wants to keep it sealed behind lock and key. The 100% reason for that is because Donald Trump is in those files. Donald Trump is 100% implicated in that shit. Otherwise, why wouldn't he just release it? Why wouldn't he just release it unredacted and just tell the world? What does he have to lose? He's the president of the United States. Unless he's in it. And his rich buddies are in it. And his friends, the Clintons, are in it. Then it could be a really politically unpalatable thing for him to release that. Oh, man. Ooh. He can't... MAGA is not going to hold on to him even after hearing that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein Files, are they? Surely to God, not. Is MAGA really going to keep clinging to Trump after they hear that he was involved in the same sex pest pedophile ring that Jeffrey Epstein and the Clintons and all of these other fucking shadowy rich fucks have been involved in? Is MAGA really going to go okay, well, I guess, Obama, Biden was kind of weird about that sort of thing too, so I really don't think they will. I think that there's going to be a fucking revolt, not like a violent revolution or anything like that. Literally, I think there's going to be a revolt if something like that happens. I think that MAGAs are going to come out in force with, fuck this Trump dude, fuck this. I think it's going to be crazy to watch the meltdown, though, because I don't know, what happens when the Trump spell finally is broken, and eventually the Trump spell will be broken. What happens? What does America look like after that? It's been 12 years of Trump, right? Has it been 12 years of Trump? No, not quite. Not quite yet. It's been almost 10 years of Trump, though. So when the veil finally breaks, what does America look like after that? Internal racism is not inherent racism. So, Pig Mercy, would you say that I'm internally racist, but not inherently racist, maybe? Because like I said, I really, I recognize a racist idea when I hear one, and I don't like them, I find them disgusting, but I also will catch myself, laughing at the occasional joke at a person of color's, not necessarily at a person of color's expense, but like that are reliant on stereotypes about that kind of thing. Of course, then again, some of the times when I laugh at a joke like that, it's being made by a person of that racial heritage, so maybe I don't need to worry about it as much. I think a lot of, like, lefty white people think, like, spend way too much time thinking about whether what they're doing is, like, cool and fine and okay, and way too little time just being ourselves. No, that's taught. I grew up being taught that all people are equal and that everyone is different in their own way, so I didn't consider race until I got into high school or slightly before. Well, you probably didn't, like, consider race that much, because I was taught with the same beliefs, right? But I also would encounter everyday sort of racism, and that sort of thing, I think, affects how someone sees other people, even if you don't mean it to, right? Yes, you were shown and taught racism. You were sensitized to certain mannerisms and racial stereotypes. Yeah, I would agree with that, for sure. For sure, for sure. Take me back to when he was just that idiot real estate guy on The Apprentice. Oh, I know. Take me back to the days when life was simple and things made sense. By the way, if anybody wants to send a super chat, we are sitting at a measly $5, which I'm appreciative of, but normally for an hour and 16 minutes of the stream, we'd be doing better than that, and it's just crazy. We're hanging at 107 viewers and 51 likes, but $5 in super chat. That's a damn ways off. I might start doing goals on these, by the way, like donation-based goals, where I'll do, like, you know, I'll set an initial stream time. Maybe I should go ahead and do that, but I don't want to limit myself at the same time. Fuck. But maybe next stream I'll start it, where it's like, okay, I'll go for an hour and a half for free, but you guys have to donate to extend it. Get me to 20, and I'll do another 30 minutes. Get me to 50, and I'll do another hour. Get me to 100, and I'll add yet another hour. That's something I could do. Aw, thank you, Book Blaze. I appreciate you. That's kind of you. But seriously, I do need to find better ways to integrate my monetization model and make it more rewarding. The other pay piggies are asleep? Exactly, Riley Weston. Exactly. No, I genuinely do appreciate the super chats I get, and you guys are super fucking cool for supporting the channel, just basically based on the fact that you guys think I'm cool. Tyson, don't even worry about it. Like I said, I'm more or less kidding, because I know how it is, you know? But, you know, 106 people watching, you never know when one of those 106 people is going to have some money in their wallet that they want to throw, and asking a question and making sure it gets read, or just at supporting the channel, you know? You never know. Can you sterilize a needle with hand sanitizer? No, I wouldn't recommend it, because hand sanitizer has other ingredients that are meant to make it, like, miscible and shit, that are meant to make it something that you can pump, right? Or squeeze. So I would never use hand sanitizer to sanitize a needle. If you're needing to sanitize a needle and you don't know what else to use and then you just don't have any other option, heat is honestly the best way. Like running a flame over it briefly for a few seconds. Now you don't want to touch the needle to anything to wipe that if there's residue on it. So what I would do to make absolutely sure is use some heat on it and then have some rubbing alcohol with some little cotton swabs or some little cotton batting. Have some of that soaking in there. And then after you sanitize your needle with the heat, then grab in there, squeeze that around the end of your needle, and then wipe it off. The alcohol also has a sanitizing effect, so if the flames doesn't get it, the alcohol will. That's a bad idea, yo. Use hot water and rubbing alcohol. My bad, not hot water. You want a lighter. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't use hand sanitizer. That shit's got like propylene glycol and shit in it that's meant to make it more squirty and, you know, watery and shit. But you don't want that for something that's going to go in your body. Does YouTube pay you just for views and likes or only super chats? So if I have a video that I like, so yes, I can get paid for just views and watch page ads, and if like people have premium and stuff like that. But streams don't work like that until after I post them, and then even then I have to turn monetization on, and even then I can't always turn monetization on because if I played a song or something like that, I usually get copyright struck. And if I get copyright struck, a lot of times it won't allow you to turn on monetization. Sometimes it will, and it'll split revenue. But I gotta tell you, revenue from ads and shit like that is a very, very, very minuscule part of even bigger YouTubers' earnings schedule. That's why a lot of big YouTubers you see have like so many different elements of their monetization model, is because YouTube used to be a way easier place to make money off of, and that's why the era of people getting like rich off of YouTube is kind of like died, and now you can still make a good living off of YouTube, but it requires more effort and coordination than it used to, from what I can tell. And I see more people going down more angles to do it as well. So like a channel that I watch, Deep Fat Fried, they've got Patreon, they've got memberships. Now they offer the same content on the Patreon and the memberships, but they've got Patreon and memberships. They've got live streams where they accept super chats, and that's part of the monetization model. In fact, it's a big chunk of the monetization model, from what I understand. I don't know that for sure, though. I don't know the back end details of their shit. It's just like based on like outsider looking in type of thing. It seems to be a bigger part of their donation model than it used to be. But yeah, user supported channels now have to go through a bunch of different avenues in order to make the effort of making content worth it in terms of monetary reward. But you can definitely still make a good living and be actually profitable. Now, I'm not to the point where I'm making a good living off of YouTube. For me, YouTube is more like a part-time job in terms of income for me right now. But that's why I'm, like, I want to be one of these people that just sits around and talks about the news and politics and shit like that all day. And that's why I solicit super chats and tell people to like the stream and try to grow the channel, because ultimately it's that sort of support that will enable me to do that. And the growth has been pretty fucking meteoric, too. I support trans rights and trans wrongs. Thank you, Matthew Yapini. You really have to support both if you're gonna get anywhere in this country. You have to support trans rights and trans wrongs. YouTube is the same as any career. You need to network and seek out sponsorship in order to make significant money. Exactly. Pretty much that, yeah. You can always take sponsors. I don't know that I would be a good channel to sponsor for anybody, though. Like, I guess there's some things I could sponsor if I get big enough, There's definitely some things I could sponsor, like especially if I move to a fully rec legal state. I could, in theory, get sponsored by a cannabis brand or something like that, but I don't even know if that's a thing. Hey, if there's any cannabis brands out there and you want to sponsor me, go ahead. Shoot me an email. Bro, I pay for Matt and Shane's secret podcast on Patreon. They're one of the most subbed on Patreon. They make $2 to $4 million a month on Patreon. Like goddamn. Oh yeah, dude. Like, that's the thing. If you get really good at what you do, like there are way less successful people than that, obviously, but it's still a lucrative thing, right? At certain levels, and it's still, a lot of it's proportional to the amount of work that you put into it. And a lot of these productions that do make millions of dollars a year, they're putting in an insane level of production value to get that. So, yeah. I don't know why we're talking about this. Trump only has one last term. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I do hear people talking about Trump running for a third term, but he's constitutionally limited from it. And he's also been waffling on whether or not he's even going to pursue it as a fucking thing. So I really don't think we can expect a third Trump term. Even if they do try to make some constitutional push to change it, I don't think it'll be successful. And so I'm pretty sure that you're right, that this is the last of Trump that we'll have to worry about for a while. Had to plug the dogs, real. Yeah, nah, dude. I mean, like, I would totally... Trump on top? Bro, Trump couldn't be further from on top. Trump is experiencing Trump is experiencing massive descent from within the ranks. Trump is experiencing his star fading, as we all predicted it would eventually. My other account is still blocked. Sensitive mods. Then gets timed out for 24 hours. Oh, poor Seawag. Just make another account. You'll be fine. What's up, Alicia? How y'all feel about the UFC holding a UFC White House card? What exactly is that? I don't know enough about the UFC to comment on that directly unless you can provide me with some more context, sadly. They're going to fight in the Oval Office? Who? Who's fighting? So who's on this ticket? Who's on the fucking... Who's on this bill anyway? He announced the UFC is going to do a pay-per-view in the White House next year. We don't know yet. What the fuck, dude? This administration is so unserious. This is the most fucking... This is literally like if you elected your fucking NASCAR-obsessed uncle to the White House. This is like if you fucking elected your crazy, conspiracy-believing, NASCAR-loving, beard-swilling uncle to the White House. Dude, that's what we got. We literally got Uncle fucking... We got Uncle Cletus in the White House, and we're pretending that we're still a serious country and shit. I just don't get the point of coming in here and hating someone like you. If I was this mad at someone, I would just leave the chat, smoke weed, and play video games. Yeah, that's the thing, Matthew. You have to understand that a lot of people... You seem to be an incredibly normal person, you know? And that's the problem that you run into when you're a normal person online, right? Me and you both find it so fucking strange that someone would even find it a good use of their time to come in here and fuck on me. Like, they almost have to know they're not going to make a dent, right? They're not going to have any effect on the way I feel about things or the way I present myself. They have to know that. I refuse to believe that they aren't capable of making that realization, of making that association. So they have to know that it's just going to end badly for them. I really think that there are some people that have like a humiliation kink, maybe. Maybe it's not even a kink, but I think that there are some people who have like a humiliation fetish to some degree. Maybe it's not even sexual, but for some people, they just love being the one that is making all the other chimps scream and pull their hair out. Now, the difference between me and, like, a lot of other people is that I don't scream and pull my hair out when people like that come in here talking crazy shit. I handle them pretty adeptly, in my opinion, and I move on from it, and we continue the conversation, right? It's like they were never even there, which is the best way that you can handle a troll. If you're going to give them any attention at all, show them and the rest of the chat, the audience that's listening to you, why they're morons, why they're, like, totally, like, non-functional in the conversation. Illustrate that to everybody, and then move on to the more interesting topics. Phoebe Opie, remember me? Tico Fox? Vaguely, yeah. Vaguely. I don't remember what the last thing we talked about was, but yeah, it's good to see you around again. I'm not mad, I just think it's funny. Wait, what did you say? I didn't see what you said. So what do you think the Dems are going to do for the midterms and election? I have no fucking clue, Trippa C. I don't know what the fuck they're going to run on. They can't run on opposition to the big beautiful bill because they offered only a tokenistic resistance. They can't offer... but I tell you what, they are going to run on. I would love to say that the Democrats are just going to be out of strategy and that there's going to be nothing for them to lean on. But you know what they'll lean on? Literally, that's why they're not doing anything about the big, beautiful bill. They are saving all of their advocacy and energy towards getting elected again in the midterms. They're waiting. They're sitting on this shit like a fucking egg, and they're going to bring it all out, and they're going to act like they offered something more than a tokenistic resistance to the big, beautiful bill. And you know what's sad? They'll probably win. They'll probably win in the midterms because there are a shit ton of Americans who are sick to death with the way Trump is doing things and would love to give the Democrats enough of a majority to severely limit Trump's ability to do anything that he wants to do. It would not shock me. It would not shock me if the Democratic Party is able to make massive strides in the midterm elections in terms of their standing in Congress, just simply based off the fact that Trump has been an unrepentant fascist. That's all you need to get a Democrat elected. That's all you need. That's literally all you need to get a Democrat elected is 4 to 8 years of shitty Republicanism. And you're right back to the Dems. No matter how much the Dems influenced the country's decision to pick that fucking sour Republican, the Democrats get ran back to because people have lost the ability to think for longer than 5 minutes, and people have lost the ability to think 3 or 4 moves ahead, or to remember 4 or 5 moves ago. The Dems love Trump. Easy work for them as an opposition party. Oh, dude, yeah, exactly. The Dems love Trump, dude. That's why, literally, Hillary Clinton helped to fund Donald Trump's first fucking campaign because she believed he was the easiest candidate to beat. She looked at Trump as an easy W. She was not aware of what things were actually on the ground level of American politics. And so she made this mistaken calculation that Trump would not be a popular candidate, that Trump would not be able to win the presidency. She chose to fund his campaign. And so, she looked at them as a chance to have some, what I guess she thought would be, not controlled opposition, but sort of like controlled opposition. And instead, it ended up being the opposite because people fucking moved to get behind Trump. And in my opinion, it was mainly because Hillary Clinton was not offering a very good vision for the country. She was fighting with Bernie about universal health care right up until she got selected as a nominee. And then she aped all of his fucking positions on that. Which, it's funny because Hillary Clinton actually championed universal health care when she was first lady. And then she went to being okay, well, no, I guess we'll do a private healthcare system. That's the way it's going to be. And then she got real fucking jammed. She got jammed about that after a while. And then she argued with Bernie Sanders against universal health care as a policy right up until he was no longer a political threat. And then she aped his policy to try and ape some of his voters from him, but it wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. Nobody believed it was genuine. Too few people even knew it happened because it was so close to the election. And it lost her the election. Her bad strategy and policy decisions in the run-up to that election cost her that election and cost the American people 4 years of Trumpism. 4 years of the MAGA cult being able to build and be built. 4 years of the worst, most idiotic people in America forming a weird little nucleus of just utter impotent rage. Saw that shit in 6th grade, and I don't think I'll vote in my life. What shit? What shit specifically? After reading 5 propaganda tweets, I'm dude, Iran was talking shit, dude. I don't know, man. We should VC sometime when you're available. Maybe. Running back and forth between a neglectful and physically abusive parent. Yeah, exactly. Funniest headline, we need to stop Trump from invading Iran. I mean, we do. Maybe that's funnier in context. Maybe I just lost the context. Right above that about Hillary winning. Oh, okay. I gotcha. Saw that shit in 6th grade and I don't think I'll vote in my life. Yeah, you're not the only one, by the way, Tyson. There are so many fucking people that are in your same position. There are so many fucking people. So many fucking people that are in your position that were like, Hillary's gonna win. Oh my god, she's not gonna win. And they're disenfranchised by that. But there's even more people that are disenfranchised by the fact that Bernie had his fucking chances stolen by the Democratic Party. So Hillary Clinton basically uses superdelegates and like political machinery to make impotent the campaign of Bernie Sanders. And after she has done that, she, like I said, apes all of his positions. And that betrayal that Bernie Sanders kind of engaged in when he decided he's not going to run as an independent, he's not going to continue his campaign, he's actually going to give all of his money to the DNC, he's going to push all of his votes to the DNC, and everyone who's gotten behind him, he's going to say, nope, you got to vote for the DNC, even though they just fucked me. There are a shit ton of people that did not vote that year because they got disgusted with the whole system, because they saw how democracy just didn't matter. How even the Democratic Party wasn't willing to really engage in democracy at a deep level within its own party structure. And they felt betrayed by that. And some of those people have never voted in an American election since then. Trump was in that one movie, Home Alone. That's true. He was. The context is that both administrations are rock hard for invading Iran. Oh, since like the 80s? Yeah, no, I know. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been since the Ayatollah has taken power. You see, Iran for a long time was ruled by an American puppet called the Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. And he was the last ruling monarch of Iran. Basically became an American puppet because the Iranian people in the early 1950s, late 1940s elected this dude to the prime ministeria called, he was named Mohammad Mossadegh. And Mohammad Mossadegh had a policy that he was trying to pursue of nationalization of the country's oil supplies. Nationalization that he planned to use the funds from, and the fair prices that he demanded of his trading partners, he planned to use that to fund all sorts of social programs and infrastructure renewal and modernization in his country. And, well, that policy just wasn't going to work, right? And so, because the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company was, like literally having its refineries and oil wells and shit like that stolen away from it by this government that is nationalizing the oil wells. When I say stolen away from it, I of course mean to say rightfully reappropriated to the profit of the people. But regardless, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company was not happy about this because it was mostly the English oil company. It was less Anglo-Iranian and more just Anglo, if you get my saying. And as the Brits started to lose their foothold in Iran, they called in the United States, who of course called in the CIA. Good old regime change experts that they are. They came in, deposed Mohammad Mossadegh, and essentially entered into a relationship with the Shah Reza Pahlavi Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. Reza Pahlavi is his son. But they entered into an agreement with Mohammad Pahlavi to make him basically the main ruler of Iran. He cracked down massively on dissent, cracked down massively on protest. He did continue the nationalization of the oil, but he did so in a way that provided massive fucking deals and big contractual obligations and shit to American-owned companies and British-owned companies. So he basically was a parrot and a puppet for the West. He was an instrument of their values and desires in the Middle East. And Mohammad Pahlavi did a lot of fucked up shit, a lot of political repression, a lot of torture, a lot of just untoward things. And he really fucked up when he fucked with the clerics. That's where he really fucked up. He started to make life harder on the clerics, And that was like the straw that broke the camel's back, because the people were pissed at him, but then he got in bad with the clerics. The Ayatollahs had been friends with the Shah for a long time, but it was when the Shah tried to introduce some land reforms, basically. Some land reforms that inconvenienced a lot of the Ayatollahs and the like rich landowning religious elite, basically. I mean, they weren't so much rich as they were just landowning, right? A lot of them were not necessarily rich in terms of money, but they were rich in terms of land, and these people were obviously put rather aside by Pahlavi's new policy of land reform. And because he'd done all this other fucked up shit, he really didn't have much of a people to turn to. It's not like he was some leader that was doing something unpopular with one section of the country, but he was so widely popular with the rest of the country that it didn't matter. He had pissed off everybody by this point, and he had like one last thing that was giving him any air of legitimacy in the region, and that thing was his relationship with the clerics. Once that soured, there was no way that he could stay in power. Things began to shift. There was a coup, like another coup, basically, that took over power and ousted the Shah. He fled to the United States. Well, actually, he didn't originally flee to the United States. I don't remember where he originally fled to, but he fled to, it might have been Israel. I don't remember, but he flees somewhere, right? The Islamic Revolutionary Guard, I think it was called, takes power, or the predecessor organization to it takes power. They invite Ayatollah Khomeini back to Iran because he'd been exiled. That was one of the things, by the way, it was one of the things that caused this revolution to be possible in the first place, the Iranian Revolution that occurred in 1979. All of this is to say that we have been fucking around with Iran for 75 years now. We've been fucking around with Iran for about 75 years now. And we are always against Iran if Iran is not led by an American puppet. It was true in the 50s. It's been true. It was true in the 80s. It was true in the 90s. It was true in the early 2000s. And it remains true today. Lately, I've been trying to keep track of the news. It can be hard, but make sure you're going to different sources and shit, too. Make sure you're not just going to NPR or just going to AP. Make sure you're going to, like, some of these more mainstream sources, too. Make sure you're going to some of the more editorial sources, you know. Check out the gonzo journalism and check out the mainstream journalism. Check out the fucking yellow journalism and the fucking complete, you know, picture kind of thing. Check out the biased shit, the unbiased shit, and the biased shit that claims to be unbiased shit. And the unbiased shit that claims to be biased shit. Media consumption is something we don't actually talk about our relationship with very often in this country, but I think it's an important topic. And media literacy is something that I think is important for people to, like, really get an idea of their personal relationship with it, right? Because it is not healthy to get all of your news from one source. It is not healthy to only watch one kind of movie. It is not healthy to only read one kind of book. It is not healthy to only watch one kind of YouTube show. You should have a broad variety of media that you watch, consume, read, listen to, etc. I genuinely believe that. I think it's part of keeping a human's horizons wide. I think it's part of knowing what you like is knowing what you don't like. Part of knowing what you don't like is experiencing things that you don't like. I know I don't like roller coasters because I've been on a roller coaster. And now I don't think I need to try every roller coaster on the planet to see if there's one that'll suit me. I'm pretty sure that one experience was enough. But I tried it, you know? Similarly, I know that I'm not a big fan of rom-coms because I've watched so goddamn many of them. But if one interests me, I always check it out. I don't let the fact that it's a rom-com turn me aside, you know? My mouth tastes like fried chicken, and also I'm pretty sure he fled to either Jordan or the U.S. I think it was Jordan. He did not originally flee to the U.S., I know that much. So I'm going to say it was Jordan because originally he fled to some Middle Eastern country, and it was actually the thing that started the Iran hostage crisis. A lot of people don't know this, dude. So much history from the last 60 years has been lost. But whatever. That's why you guys had me, right? Okay, so the Iranian hostage crisis, which, by the way, is one of the things that started the Iran-Contra affair. This shit is like deep, deep, deep lore for America. But the Iran hostage crisis was caused when America allowed the previous Shah, the last reigning monarch of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, to come to America to receive cancer treatment, I think it was. And the Ayatollahs, of course, found this out. It was not kept some kind of state secret. In fact, the Ayatollahs had warned the United States, hey, if you guys do this, we are gonna, like, shit's gonna go down. Don't do this. Don't let this fuck into your country. Don't provide him cancer treatment. Let him die on his own. Which, whatever, I might not find that an entirely moral decision for them to make, but it was something that they made, like, they made their demands clear in that regard. And I do think a people gets to decide, like, I think America chose to be complicit in the lack of justice being executed on the last Shah of Iran. Because the last Shah of Iran did some horrible fucking shit to that people. And I think that people deserved to let their leader get their just rewards, get some of the fucking shit that they've been dumping on the population for the last 30, 40, fucking 50 years. I think that's reasonable, honestly. Now, do I think that, like, just letting him die of cancer is necessarily a moral decision either? No, but in absentia of true justice, I think it'll serve, you know? But America chose not to do that. In fact, America publicized the fact that it was not going to do that, and the fact that it didn't do that when it publicized the Shah coming over here to receive cancer treatment. Of course, at which point the Ayatollahs were like, I bet. And the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, in concert with students at a certain university, took a bunch of American hostages at, I believe it was an embassy, I think? An embassy in Iran. So they took a bunch of hostages, and it was like, if I remember correctly, it was like a years-long conflict of them trying to get these hostages out. Indoor ones can be cool, though. I'm terrified of heights, but I love roller coasters. Oh, yeah, dude. I'm terrified of roller coasters, for sure. Yeah, it's so bad, yeah. Like, first we started off with a recession, then it just kept getting worse and worse. Now a war with Iran or conflict and the Epstein drama. Like, what? Well, this is what it's like to live through history, you know? History is always happening somewhere, but countries go through ebbs and flows, and countries go through times of relative plenty and stability and times of instability and chaos, and we are in one of those periods of instability and chaos. Some people would say, no, the country's always been in chaos and instability. Yeah, not this much. Not quite this much. Not from anything I can tell. It seems like tensions are a fair bit higher now than they've been any time in the last 100 years. Now, if you want to talk about any time in America's history, obviously now is incredibly outmatched by the Civil War era, which actually featured people actually killing each other over their disagreements about policy. I never knew that's why they took hostages. Oh yeah, a lot of people don't. But yeah, the reason why Iran took a bunch of hostages, took a bunch of American hostages, and I think British hostages too. The reason why they took them, though, is entirely because the United States chose to allow the old Shah to come back to the U.S. for cancer treatment. That was 100% what the beef was about. The Ayatollahs felt like if America has control over the Shah, if the Americans can give us the Shah, they should give us the Shah. Last time we were this divided, there was bloodshed. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying, right? I'm not saying that things are as bad as they were during the Civil War, but what I'm saying is that things are bad. And the last time they were this bad, people started dying over it. History is getting kind of caught in a loop, it feels like a time loop that resets every decade or so. Well, one of the things you learn when you start learning more about world history and even just U.S. history, one of the things you start to figure out is that time is a flat circle. There are patterns in history that will repeat endlessly. What varies, in my opinion, is severity. What varies is like severity, proximity, and narrative. But I think, like, fundamentally, human beings keep making a lot of the same mistakes. Now, that's not universally true. Like, in some ways, there is progress that gets made, but in other ways, like every bit of progress that continues to be progress is underpinned by thousands of people like all of us that are working to keep it that way. Every community garden you see in your town, like if you've ever driven by a community garden and saw an actual working garden that was growing shit, that is only because a couple of 20, maybe 100 people are working to keep that thing up, working to keep it weeded, working to make sure that the soil is being properly amended every year when it's recycled and shit like that. There are people involved in that process. America requires a lot of hands to keep all these wheels greased and moving. And in a way, that can feel like historical inertia. That can feel like nothing's ever getting done. But ultimately, shit is getting done. It's just gradual. And I think as people get more gains, there's also, I don't know if there's a name for this effect. Maybe if I read more sociology textbooks, I would. Actually, I don't know if I've read any sociology textbooks. So maybe if I read one, I would know. But I don't know if there's a term for this effect. But I feel like as people start to, get some of the gains that they've been fighting for, as people encounter what they perceive as a victory, there is almost a chilling effect on those people's activism, because it's like, okay, I can rest now. Okay, I've gotten the win. We can rest now. Things are chill. And I do think that there should be a sense of relative relaxation that comes from getting getting a political victory or something like that. Like, I think if you achieve a goal that you're trying to achieve, I think it is reasonable to celebrate and be like, whew, I'm glad that we don't have to pay for fucking private healthcare anymore. That's dope. Man, that is so fucking cool. Yay. But it's still important to fight for that. And when people come up with shitty bills to defund that universal healthcare system, it's going to be important for the advocates who helped get it passed in the first place to get out there and protest for it to continue. I actually like the idea of Trump, or a Trump type of figure, because he does actually get shit done. Mostly bullshit, but he's gotten past the filibusters, and that pushed a lot of his agenda forward. My thing about Trump is that he kind of proves that progressive and more lefty presidents could be getting shit done, could be doing things that actually make a difference. Like, Joe Biden could have done some of the same shit, ostensibly, and gotten his agenda pushed forward. Barack Obama ostensibly could have done some of the same shit and pushed his agenda forward, because a lot of the stuff that fucking Trump is doing is not stuff he invented. These are strategies that fucking George Bush used. Literally. The vast majority of Trump's tactics are Bush tactics that he has repurposed for Trumpism. So these are things that Obama could have taken advantage of, and he chose not to. He chose to be a law and order president that was just going to work within the system and everything, which is fine, but it's not what we need in an era where there's an active fascist willing to fucking rip people's rights away just for not liking him, just for being an open and public critic of him. That sort of thing, that cries out for a Huey Long kind of figure. We need the kingfish. We need the kingfish. The guy in the White House has a blue tie now. Back to bed, guys. Exactly. Riley, you're getting the idea, right? And it's not just presidential victories either. It's philosophical victories and legislative victories and things like that. Anytime People feel like they've achieved what they were out to achieve. There's this kind of like temporary chilling effect on their activism. And part of it is refocusing on a new goal. Part of it's just trying to do the like dialogue and everything that it requires, or that is required to know where to go next and what to advocate for next. But a lot of it's just like, it almost feels like instinctual or something. I don't know. But it's something that you have to actively fight against if you're part of any sort of advocacy movement, because eventually people get sick of asking for the same fucking thing and nothing ever happening. Or people get what they want and they get sick of asking for it to continue to be funded. They get sick of fighting for it, basically. And that's understandable, but you really, like, if you care about the world and you care about the things that are enjoyable about your city or whatever thing you do for activism, you should honestly be looking for someone to replace you. You should be looking to get someone else involved in the organization that's younger than you are. You know, like assuming you're in your 60s or whatever and you're getting to the point where you're just not up to doing the like constant community activism thing anymore, you should be looking for someone my age or something to bring into the project to kind of show them the ropes and get them interested and get them invested in it and show them like pass the reins on to the next generation so that these things can continue. That's fine. But the chilling effect that happens when people get these victories, I think, is broader than that. And it makes people, like you said, oh, the Dems won? Oh, fuck, we can go back to bed now. We're going to get... It's like, okay, we've done the hard work we needed to do to get this victory because everything's been framed through this electoral lens. There we go. I think we've landed on the answer. Everything is framed through an incredibly electoral lens. And so an electoral victory, like an electoral presidency victory, seems like a bigger win than it actually is. And people have been trained to look at the path to universal health care as being electing a leftist enough president. And because people look at it through that framework, they see electing a Democrat as ultimately the only thing that they really need to achieve. Because it's going to be under a Democratic president that we get universal health care, so let's just keep electing Democrats, because we're never going to get it if we elect Republicans. Blah, 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 blah. You know, it's the endless fucking march of lesser of two evils voting that presumes that the only way you get a universal healthcare system is if the Democrats are in office. That's not true. The only way we get a universal healthcare system is if the American people rise up and demand one. Yeah. Never ask Bill Clinton about his assistants. That's true. Whenever a Republican is in office, all this big crazy shit gets put through quickly. But then when a Dem is in the White House, it's all, oh, our hands are tied. The president doesn't have much power. Yeah, exactly. When the Republicans are in office, the presidency is a position of fascist authoritarianism. And that's because Republicans are willing to use it that way. But the problem I have with it is that when Democrats get in office, they suddenly want to act like the position itself, just like the nature of it changed because they're in office. And they've got to maintain this separate other standard for some fucking reason. I genuinely think that the reason a Democrat, the only time so Trump has ran for president 3 times, in seriousness, right? He's ran for presidency 3 times now. 2 times he's been successful. The only time he wasn't successful was when he botched a fucking pandemic and the old man sitting across from him somehow looked like a better option. But 2 out of 3 times, Trump has beaten Democrats. And I think the reason for that is very clear and obvious. It's because, number one, the Democrats do not want to adopt actual progressive policy when it comes to the economy, economic matters, and things like that. And number 2, the Democrats do not want to get down and dirty with Trump. But that's the only way you beat him. The only way you beat this shit pants diapered moron is by calling him out for what he is. Now, talking to his supporters, that's one thing. If you're trying to convince a MAGA person that, there is a better way to think, maybe the best policy for that isn't, calling him out like that. But if you're like a Democratic talking head and some shit, like if you're anybody with like actual sway in the Democratic Party, you should be going utterly low. You should. Trump's not going to stop going low, so neither should you. Go lower. Demonstrate the utter fucking tragic, sad fall from grace that America has undergone, allowing Trump to be its president. Demonstrate that, and it's so easy to demonstrate that. Just show his fucking tweets. Just like, talk about the shit he does openly. Talk about how bad he fucking smells. Talk about how horrible he is at meeting other fucking people. Talk about how incompetent his speeches are. Like, meet him where he meets them. Because I feel like every single one of them have tried to take the high road with Trump, have been like, we're not going to descend to his level. We're not going to engage in this sort of thing. The only Trump tactics they'll engage in are fucking election denialism. And I'm over that shit. I don't know about y'all, but I'm over this fucking every 4 years I got to hear about how our election... So here's what I get sick of, right? Every fucking time one of the major parties loses an election, we get to hear from that party for the next 4 years about how the votes are rigged, about how the election's fucking bullshit, about how all the voting systems can't be trusted, about how your vote doesn't mean anything, yada, yada, yada. But then, when the campaign for the next fucking presidency starts, that party then goes around telling you that your vote matters. Like, that party then walks around telling everybody, your vote matters deeply. Your one vote could change things. It's like, wait, fucking 5 minutes ago you were telling me the whole system's rigged, that the election was stolen. So if an election could just be stolen from you because the powers that be don't like you or whatever, why the fuck do you need me to vote? It doesn't matter at that point, if that's the fucking narrative. But that's exactly what it is. It's a narrative. It's not the truth. It's a narrative that is more convenient to these people than believing the actual fucking truth of the matter. Biden. Student debt forgiveness? Sorry, Jack. My hands are tied. Gotta respect the Constitution. Trump. Oh, the Constitution? Literally wipes his ass with it. Yeah, I know. That's the thing. That's another one of those things that just gets me endlessly about the, like, the liberal versus Republican dog and pony show, is that Trump is endlessly fucking powerful, right? Trump can do whatever he wants to the Constitution. The Constitution can't limit him. He's this big, scary fucking dude we all got to be afraid of and worry about. But Biden is just a little puppy dog. He can't do nothing about no economy. He can't do nothing about his student loans. Sorry. It's ridiculous, bro. It's childish. It's infantilizing. And we need to stop accepting it as policy. Trump is not dismantling anything. He is not shaking things up. He is operating in the same political dynamics that have always existed, and he is selling you golden coins while you bitch about egg prices. Get real. Oh, yeah, dude. No, he's not. I mean, like, that's the thing. The same thing happened on the right. Conservatives are having a rude awakening right now. Oh, yeah, I know. Well, that's the fucking thing. Is like, people, like the American people in general, need to get used to the idea that politicians are not from whence your savior will come. Like, our saving grace is not going to come from politicians. It's going to come from the American people exercising their fucking right to gather in public and demand a redress of grievances. Our freedom of association shall not be infringed. Our freedom of speech shall not be infringed. Like, we need to take advantage of these things and make our points known and demand fucking action on this shit before it becomes too fucking late and the Overton window shifts too far to the right, and literally not only can nothing get done electorally, but shit is getting worse every fucking year. That's the state we're in right now. And I don't know how much longer we can take it before America is relegated to, like, some sort of harder core, way more outright, even more oppressive, like, fascist dictatorship. Like, I just don't know. Like, I don't think we have that right now, but I think we're hurtling towards it. And I think that there's a number of things that can be done to stymie it, but I just don't see any of them being done. Somebody asked me earlier, what are the Democrats going to run on? And I was like, good fucking question. Wish I knew the answer. But ultimately, they'll run on the same shit that they always do, which is, well, we're not Republicans. Oh, you really hate this big, beautiful bill, huh? Well, the only way we can fight it is if you vote for us in the midterms. Fucking Democratic operatives have already been out there stumping for it. Democratic operatives, literally, we're fucking how many years out from the midterms? Well, I guess there'll be a midterm next year, right? So yeah, we're a year out from the midterms, and I've already seen DNC political hacks talking about how we're, how utterly we need to fucking get ready for the midterms, and we need to, like, Wait, wouldn't a midterm election be in 2026? I'm fucking retarded. Anyway, but I've already heard DNC political operatives talking about how we need to be ready to win big in the midterms, and we need to use this and talk about how and it's just like, you can't run on this if your politicians don't run on this. You can't run on this if your politicians don't do shit about it. You can't run on this if your politicians decide for you that it's not going to be an object of contention. Advocating for Trump is silly and willfully ignorant. He's very obviously not some sort of unstoppable force in the face of the establishment. Trump is the establishment, and theirs are his interests. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. There's a reason why they say activism is exhausting. There's always something worth fighting for. 100%. Activism is exhausting, but it's worth it, right? That's why we do it. Biden, student. Oh, I read that. Trump is not dismantling anything. He is not shaking things up. He is operating in the same political dynamics that have always existed, and he is selling you golden coins while you bitch about egg prices. Get real. Yeah, no, I tend to agree. I do think that Trump has taken it up to a higher... I think he's, maybe raised the volume on it, but that's pretty much what every Republican president does. They raise the volume on it. The Democrats normalize this new raised volume, maybe do a few tokenistic things to make them look like not complete monsters, and then go on about their business, continuing to bomb Palestinian children and be complicit in the genocide in Gaza, continue to be complicit in all sorts of dictatorial action all over all over the world. A nation beyond parody, pretty much, yeah. How do you feel about these online libs telling remorseful Trump voters, you reap what you sow, fuck you? They're fucking retarded. I think people like that are so fucking stupid, bro. I literally think you could not have a stupider reaction to MAGA people being upset right now. To contrast, Riley, my take on this shit and how I've been handling MAGA blowing up. Contrast that with that take. Contrast my tactic with that take. My tactic has been, right? I've been talking about how Trump is betraying MAGA people and how I don't see how more people haven't come out against him and everything. And I have conversations with these folks. I never tell them, fuck you, you voted for Trump, you reap what you sow. Ever, 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 ever. I cannot imagine a more alienating thing to say to somebody who is regretting their vote for a Republican than you reap what you sow, fuck you. At that point, you don't give a shit about the planet, the country, your fellow countrymen, or anything else. You give a shit about winning an argument and about looking good to your fucking cloistered off fucking online community of 10 people. Fuck that shit. I still have 4 more hours of my shift and I'm starting to get sleepy. Aw, poor Tyson. Tyson's a night shifty. Tyson's a night shifty, and I think he uses these to kind of pass the time a little bit. Especially because you can flip that on back on them. Well, we told you Trump would win again if y'all backed Joe. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Americans, help us! Republicans, no. Democrats, no. Yeah, I know. It's literally, it's the reason why politics are so fucked up in this country, and it's the reason why people that are dyed in the wool for one party or another, that's the reason why they're so fucked up. That's why they're so fucked up right now, is because I think on a deep level, a lot of them know deep down inside that it's all bullshit, that none of it makes a lick of fucking sense, that these parties are best of friends behind closed doors, that they don't give a fuck about any of this shit for real, that their concern for it ends the moment nobody's eyes are on them. A lot of people know that that's the case, but they don't really know what to do about it. They can't conceive of something they can actually do to affect that. And so they kind of just try to pretend that it's not the case while continuing to be partisan until eventually they get a belly full of it, and they get utterly sick of it, and they reject it, and then they end up somebody like me that's fucking on both parties and explaining why you can't go to either of these parties if you want your salvation. Now, I'm not talking about individual fucking Democrats. I'm not talking about, like, individual candidates. There's a difference, right? There's a difference between a local politician who you can, elect on the basis of their promises and either keep them in office or get them out of office on the basis of whether or not they pursue them with the right vim and vigor, right? I think there's a difference between local politics and state politics and national level elections and DNC policy. I think when it comes to national level elections and like DNC, like trust in the DNC, I don't think you should trust the DNC. I think that you should lend DNC candidates their support when they have principles that you agree with, like you would do in a democratic system. I think that if a Democrat has principles you agree with, you should fucking vote for them, and if they don't, then you shouldn't. Because I think a lot more people, if they followed that basic premise, I don't think Kamala would have gotten hardly any votes last year. I think every single vote that was, not every single, but I think maybe 90% of votes that were cast for Kamala last year were votes that they would have rather cast for Bernie Sanders in his old age, or fucking another Joe Biden, probably even before Kamala Harris, which is fucking sad because that dude was literally sundowning on the debate stage. For sure, you have to make sure that you support the good politicians. So many people get fed up and lose sight of that. Well, yeah, and I understand why they get fed up too, and I understand why it feels less important to them to be active on that level. But that's why it is important to be active on that level, is because that's the only way that you actually affect local and state policy. I was actually involved in the effort to make cannabis legal for recreational use in Missouri. I got to see somehow this grassroots shit works by distributing petitions for getting it on the ballot, and we were successful. We were able to get it on the ballot. Now, I worked for a company that does this as like a thing. So like whatever political campaign it was that was trying to get weed on the ballot in Missouri had paid this company called Fieldworks, and I worked with them. But I was ultimately more interested in doing the job because it's like activism, essentially, like paid activism, but activism nonetheless. It's being done in furtherance of a thing that I really agreed with. And the other thing that was on the ballot back then was ranked choice voting, which I got way less signatures for because we were still able to get it on the ballot, but we got way less signatures for it because people just did not want to stand around and listen to the explanation, It's crazy that no matter who you've been voting for the last umpteenth years, you've been voting for monopolized and state-sanctioned violence all over the world. Maybe Secretary Booty Juice will save us. Something tells me he won't. Something tells me we are in no danger of fucking Secretary Booty Juice saving us. I do need to get me a cigarette, though, so you guys might have to come with me on a brief little adventure. God damn it. Ugh. Everything's falling apart. Ew! Oof. You ever get up and realize you really shouldn't have kept your leg like that at that angle for so long? Oh. The dreaded Charlie horse? Oh, that was no Charlie horse. I just have fucked up ankles and feet. So I can barely walk right now because I'm going through a flare-up. Ow. Fuck. some politicians are like little meme cartoons to placate people. Yeah, I don't think that's why they exist, but I can see why it feels like that sometimes, for sure. Because some of these people are just incredibly unserious. Somebody like Booty Judge is a good example of the kind of thing that comes to mind. Not the only thing that comes to mind, of course, but a good example of the kind of thing that comes to mind. I love it when the government lies to me every day. I just love it when they change their opinions so fast. Oh, I know. Yeah, like Trump with this Epstein shit. When he's not in office, it's the most important document in the history of America. Have to get it out. What are they hiding? All this other shit. Then, when it actually starts to happen, now all of a sudden it's a bad thing. Or Kamala Harris at the border. Yeah, I know. That's another good example, too. Yeah, Kamala Harris. I brought a ladder down to the border, and I went down there and I looked at that border wall. And I saw those kids in cages. And I just have to tell y'all, this is something we cannot abide in this country. America is not gonna be a fascist country where we keep kids in cages. Then fast forward to, do not come. Do not come. We will continue to enforce our borders. Our policy has not changed. Remain in Mexico and do not come. Fuck. Just gonna rest for a second. Did you hear AOC yelled at a Republican? She's real change. Yeah, I know. I've heard AOC and all those other bitches, they're just, any day now, they're going to come through with a big sweeping change to the way America works as a whole. No, I got news for people, dude. Fucking AOC is not your friend. AOC is another bought and sold politician that would sail you up the river for a buffalo nickel. She is as bought and paid for as anybody else in the DNC. She is as loaded up with IPAC money as anybody else in the DNC. By the way, that's one of the reasons why I'm less skeptical about Zohran Mamdani than I was about AOC, and even, even pretty early on, because pretty early on it got revealed that AOC, her little grassroots donations pack or whatever, was taking massive fucking donations from IPAC and lobbyists. Oh, okay. The things people will do for their nicotine addiction, bro. Anyway, the veil got pulled from my eyes with AOC whenever she started accepting IPAC donations, and it got revealed that her little pack for change or whatever it was called was basically just a front to get a bunch of grassroots donations mixed in with a bunch of high-level individual donors and a bunch of high-level pack donations and shit. And Zohran Mamdani hasn't taken a bit of Israeli money, so that's pretty fucking cool in my book. Going 2-0 against a Rico is pretty fucking cool. It's just why Diddy's Rico gotta be on that record, man. Dude, Wait, was that what... Wait a minute. Was that what Diddy was fucking charged with ultimately? Hold on. Maybe I don't know as much about the Diddy case as I thought. Was Diddy up on a RICO charge? Why is everyone fake? Oh, Capybara. You speak to the heart of our conundrum as modern-day human beings. Why are we fake? Because everything around us is fake. How can we be human if everything we encounter, if everything around us is inhuman? The design of our cities, inhuman. Our philosophy, much of it is inhuman. I guess it's human in the sense that humans wrote it. But it's not very humanist. Let's put it that way. Our media is almost exclusively made to be manipulative rather than informative. Our art, what if it is not just produced by AI with very little effort, is produced with AI with much higher levels of effort. No, I'm kidding. It's produced with AI with much higher levels of effort, but it's also made by regular people just making art. And while there's a lot of really quite human art, while there's a lot of genuine art, there's also a lot of art being appropriated by the corporate structure to serve not as a lot of art is being appropriated by corporations to serve not as enrichment of human life, but rather as a method of capitalization on the human need for enrichment. All of these things come together. All of these things come together to make a fake society that generates a lot of fake people. You have to willingly choose to defy what this society wants from you in order to actually come out of it a real person that isn't just a weird fabricated stand-in for the person you really would be if your media literacy was better, if your literacy level in general was better, if you had wider experiences. But Americans are discouraged from having these things and engaging in this sort of thing. I mean, 60% of American adults read at or below a 4th grade level. With a country like that, how can you be expected to have a country full of fake people? Or, I'm sorry, to have a country full of real people? I think I'm seeing a Homo sapien when I look at Phoebe, but for all I know, she's an eel with strong enough psychic powers to trick me, a horseshoe crab, into thinking this is all real. Yeah, I mean 100%. Like, for all you know, Natasha Lyonne was trying to start an ethical AI production company in Hollywood. You see what I mean? Like, you see what I mean about living in a fake society? We live in a society that, like, doesn't even really require, it doesn't even require the, like, translation of thought into brushstrokes to make beautiful art anymore. Now, I don't think that necessarily contributes heavily to the fakeness, but it has made it easier for the people who want to worsen the problem to worsen the problem. It's made it easier for corporations to make a bunch of shitty art that's meant to capitalize rather than to enhance. It's meant to capitalize on the human need for enrichment rather than to enrich human lives. I got so scared when I saw the stream pop up on recommended. I thought this was a sacrifice or something, and then I saw it was you. That's funny. I thought it was a sacrifice. All I knew is it's a goth girl bathed in firelight, so probably a sacrifice going on. She claimed she would still be employing a professional editing and production team. I mean, maybe she would, dude. Like, at a certain point, this AI is going to get to the point where it's not just producing a really good-looking set of footage. It's producing a good-looking set of footage where you can see and edit every single frame. And when that happens, there you go. When that happens, you've got... And, I mean, like, just think about all the implications of this technology. Now that we've seen what Google can do with its latest video AI, you can make... Like, people have been fucking around with it, and people have been making some of it's not that realistic, some of it's way more realistic than others, but Google has gotten really fucking good with this latest AI project they've released. They've gotten really fucking good at making generative AI that can produce film, essentially. And it's just a short leap from that to generative AI that can produce film that can be edited by a production company. And it's just a short leap from that, from both of those things, to a generative AI that works with you on the production of a movie, integrating the edits that people are making, and that has its own editing suite where it can basically take its own files and then edit those frame by frame itself to do what you want. That's really where this technology ends up as far as like professional uses for it when it comes to generative AI that focuses on video. We're eventually going to find out that Hollywood's, and it's probably going to happen 5 years after they started adopting it. So don't look for it in the next 2 or 3 years, but 4 or 5 years from now, look out. You're going to find out about some Hollywood company that has employed this exact type of AI system in like every movie they've made for the last 3 years. It's going to come out. It's going to come out because this technology is not going to, like, it abhors a vacuum, you know? It wants to be explored. It's starting to get even now pretty good. Yeah, I know. The next step is granular editing, because that's really what sets this AI apart from a dedicated film squad and like a dedicated film crew and sets and set designers and all that other shit that you have to make a professional quality movie normally. What enables AI to take that place is granular editing and like generative style editing and shit that allows you to, through the use of prompts, to edit how something looks in terms of tone or lighting. When you get that sort of granular power over the scenes that you create with AI, then it's going to be possible for somebody to sit around with a team of like 10 people and like make a really fucking good movie in like a week. A really fucking good movie in like a week. And once that starts becoming the case, dude, it's going to be really weird. Hollywood's going to look like a weird fucking place when that becomes the case. There are going to be lots of lawsuits, and I think artists are going to really start railing hard against AI. I mean, artists have been railing hard against AI, and it hasn't made a difference, and I'll tell you why it's not going to make a difference, Pig Mercy. And I'm not saying this is good, bad, right, or wrong. The reason why it's not going to make a difference is because a lot of money is to be made on AI. There's a shit ton of money to be made on AI that allows these corporations to reduce their workforces even more, to the point where there's almost nobody in the creative staff anymore, to where it's just people... to where it's just people running the offices basically and helping to prompt on these different generative projects and things like that. It's just a matter of time. Like, but the money is basically just sitting there right for the taking for anybody who manages to develop this technology. So I guarantee you there are like 10 companies right now like trying to sprint full speed towards getting to the point where they've got that kind of tech. And once they've got that kind of tech, like I said, it's over. Pandora's box fucking opened, you know, and there will be two markets for movies. There will be people who, like there will always be a market for people who want the human touch that comes with a human director and everything else, that don't want to just watch something made by AI. There will always be people like that, and so there will always be a market for movies like that. But I also think that there's going to be an emerging market for these AI movies that are going to be really realistic and can do things and capture topics that haven't really been capturable yet because there's not been the funding available for a project like that or something to that effect. Those AI Bigfoot videos make me laugh, but like that's literally the only thing that's AI should be used for, goofy ass videos. Your country will have shortages of both baddies. Of goth baddies within days. Yeah. No, I hope not. What do you think about the floods in Texas, and what do you feel about all the misinformation when it comes to the FEMA budget cuts and the denial of faulty emergency texts and warnings? So, I think it's really fucking fucked up, obviously, and my heart goes out to the people who are, who have died thanks to this tragedy. And my heart goes out to the people who are currently displaced due to it and are sorting through the fucking rubble of their lives. As far as Trump administration policy having an effect on it, I'm not 100% sure what effect, if any, Trump administration policy had on it. What I do know is this: the floods began on July 4th. On July 5th, a bunch of people were fired from a FEMA call center. And on July 6th and 7th, thousands of calls were missed because effectively nobody was at the call center, or not enough people were at the call center to take them. I also know that FEMA has experienced a bunch of budget cuts, and that Trump has been actively hostile towards FEMA for a lot of years. So it would not shock me if faulty texts were partly responsible for the broadness of the destruction. There's things that the municipality could have done that they were thinking about doing that they didn't do, that if they had done would have increased the amount of lives saved, like for example the sirens and shit. But ultimately, I almost feel like this, like I do about a plane crash. We're gonna have to wait until a full investigation is done to really know who's at fault. It's gonna and that's probably gonna require somebody like Michael Moore, honestly, going down to Texas, taking a bunch of video of the cleanup and the devastation and all this, and talking to people and getting a real fucking sense for what's going on the ground. It's going to take some independent investigation and some official investigation to really come to a conclusion as to the full cause of the destruction down there. I think as of right now, it's a bit too early to speculate with anything more than, with anything less than a disclaimer that you're just speculating. Because that's all I can do right now. I have no idea. At the end of the day, I have no idea for sure what led to all the deaths in Texas, outside of the fact that we know that there were some emergency warning measures that weren't in place, and there were some that were not as effective as they've been touted to be. Outside of that, we don't know very much, and that makes it kind of hard, right? Most people can't hold on to their goth baddies, so no shortage ever. Oh yeah, 100%. I could never be able to keep a goth baddie, bro. My self-esteem couldn't handle it. They'd be way too pretty for me. Aw, dude, that's sad. I know that I'm their type, but I can't. Too scary. That's sad, Tyson, because, dude, I gotta tell you, as somebody who's dated multiple goth girls, they are just... you know how, people will say of a black bear, oh, it's just as scared of you as you are of it, right? Well, the goth girl is just as scared of you as you are of her, right? So, if you find a goth girl that you click with, just fucking go for it, dude, because they are some of the most loyal fucking partners you'll ever have. But the plane crashes are because of DEI, so that's probably the reason for the floods, too. Oh, man. Everything's because of DEI, right? No, I don't know. Don't overthink the baddies, exactly. There seems to be a bit of a devastating emergency situations in Texas that the state can't handle. Oh, there seems to be a lot. Oh, well, yeah, that's because Texas is just not very good at handling itself in general. Texas is basically a giant toddler, right? Texas is a giant toddler that thinks of itself as being really capable, or they're more like a teenager, I guess. They're more like a 13 or 14-year-old. They're like a little tween kind of teenager that thinks they're perfectly capable of taking care of themselves and everything. But if you leave them to their own devices, they just sit around eating fucking barbecue chips all day. and playing video games all day, and like they just like push the garbage down until they burst the bag instead of taking it out, you know. And I feel like that is Texas. Texas is a state that loves to brag about how self-sufficient it is and loves to talk shit about how they could just secede and how they want to secede and all this shit. But the moment Texas is left to its own devices, Texas starts to fall the fuck apart and has to have a bunch of federal fucking agents mobilized in it to set things to rights again. Where's all the monies? Oh, there's plenty of money. It's just spent on fucking passion projects for the people involved in high-level Texas politics and shit. Same as any other southern state. There's all kinds of money that gets given to various southern states just in the form of fucking federal grants, federal disaster relief money and shit like that. That's not even talking about the tax revenue that a state like Texas is making off of its oil fields and off of its massive population. That's before you even consider that. So there's plenty of money to go around. But Texas politicians would rather spend money on their own vacations, salaries, paychecks, benefits, and the expansion of their wealth and shit. They would rather fund that and their own little passion projects and big fucking corporate handouts to their buddies than they would proper infrastructure in their state. It was too expensive to winterize the windmills, so we just let them all freeze. Because fuck it, Texans are strong. We'll just survive 2 weeks with no power in a state where there's shit freezing to death. Once in a lifetime freeze event. Hell yeah. We're out of power because our dumbasses were too stupid and fucking unwilling to spend the money to fucking winterize the turbines. Hell yeah. It's ridiculous. Texas is giant and they believe that they could be fine on their own, but without help from people. The Lone Star State isn't so lonely. Not to mention, I'm pretty sure Abbott is in some shady business. Oh, Abbott is 100% in some shady business. But yeah, Texas is not. It's the Lone Star State, like you said, is not so lonely. And Texas is incredibly reliant on federal grant money, federal relief money, and the people of Texas are heavily reliant on welfare funds and food stamp funds and all of that. Texas is uninhabitable without AC even before climate change. Oh yeah, well, a lot of the Deep South was, honestly. Like, that's why a lot of the Deep South was honestly not that populated until after the invention of the AC, basically. Because there were a shit ton of places that, unless you were acclimated to that kind of weather from having grown up in it, there are a shit ton of places in the Deep South that are literally uninhabitable if you don't have air conditioning. And if you, like, okay, I will say there are some edge cases where you can technically make it through all right if you were born and raised in that kind of shit and you never had AC when you were growing up and you build your house the right way. Like my great grandpa's house on my dad's side had a design that allowed you to open the doors on both ends of the house, and it would actually keep things pretty cool, you know, relative to the outside, just by the action of the air moving through the house. Now, eventually they did, I think, get a window unit installed somewhere in there, and I think in the kitchen maybe, and that would cool the rest of the house. But for most of my life, when that house was standing, it was just the design of the house that kept it cool. And we live in the Deep South in an area where you wouldn't think it would be inhabitable without AC, but it's an edge case, right? But there are places on the Gulf of Mexico that literally, I'm telling you, you could not live in without AC unless, like, you were incredibly acclimated to it. Like, there are populations that live in places that are tropical like that, obviously. But, like, regular, average Americans, as we understand them and everything, like, you know, like I said, that's why the South was so deeply unpopulated for so long. I know this is north, but who the fuck arrived at Arizona, saw a barren wasteland, and was like, well, this seems like a good place to settle down? Well, from my understanding, a lot of the expansion into Arizona was driven, actually, by California. My understanding is that what drove a lot of the settling in Arizona was, expansion in California, but also there's all kinds of mines littered throughout Arizona. There's silver mines and all kinds of other mines littered throughout Arizona. And honestly, in a lot of inhospitable places, that's usually what the answer comes down to, is mineral wealth of some kind. Aw, thank you, Frey, for the $2. I appreciate that. That's kind of you. But yeah, when it comes to a lot of these uninhabitable places, a lot of the answer is just there's some kind of mineral wealth there, there's some kind of oil wealth there, there's some kind of natural resource that everybody's able to like take advantage of for enrichment, basically. So, like Arizona, California, some of these places that we think of as being pretty uninhabitable in places, mines. Mines is what brought people there. And to this day, mines continue to bring people to places that are either incredibly remote or incredibly hard to be in. They wanted to get to California and stop because they couldn't make it. Maybe so, Tyson. Maybe so. They stopped because they couldn't get all the way to Cali. They were like, fuck this. Fuck this. This seems like a green enough spot. I'm stopping off here. Maybe. Although it's my understanding that most of the people who came west over the Oregon Trail and shit, it's my understanding that they did not, like, they didn't go through the high desert, right? I wish Bambi was here. I do too, but Bambi is probably busy. I might be getting off of here soon, honestly, because my phone is about dead. It's at 22%. And the stream's kind of winding down. We have done okay with Super Chats, though, tonight. We're at $13.99 or $13.98. So, thank you guys for doing that. Somebody like the stream to get us to 60 likes. Please don't leave us with an uneven number. But, yeah, you guys probably got about 20 minutes left, I'd say, maybe, if I'm generous. In all likelihood, I'll finish this cigarette and then call it a night, but we'll see. Fuck this trail and shit. My wife's got dyslexia and dysentery. My one kid got taken by the natives and my other eaten by a mountain lion. She won't stop nagging me. Fuck it, we're stopping here. The story of the founding of Arizona. Pissed off fucking settlers. Did you know that Arizona was founded by pissed off 49ers? But yeah, no. A lot of, honestly, what drove expansion to the South and to the Midwest and areas of the Midwest that are now kind of empty, a lot of what drove that was mining and shit. It's funny. There are so many towns, right? There are so many towns in America that ultimately we're just going to have to figure out some way to make the service economy support them because, like, they're just, like, they don't make sense to exist on their own, really, Like, if you actually think about it, right? A perfectly efficient human society would not have any cities under a certain size. I'm not saying that's a goal we should pursue. I'm just saying a perfectly efficient, highly technological human society would not have cities under a certain size. Because if you're trying to have a perfectly efficient society, it only makes sense to have cities where there's abundant, like, wide intercity transit and shit. And it only makes sense in a truly efficient society to build factories and places of production and warehousing in those sorts of places. So a perfectly efficient society would have no small towns, would have no small cities. You would have to be on, like, an interstate or something like that, right? But, once again, we don't live in a perfectly efficient society. We're not going to build a perfectly efficient society out of the bones of what we've got here. But what we can do is do better than we currently do. And I think a lot of what that's going to involve is people expanding some of these businesses that don't require you to be, like... I like to think that America's small towns could be benefited from the fact that America's economy is slowly changing, and that there are things that could exist in these small towns that could take advantage of the fact that they're farther away from the city, They're less likely to be like looked into hardcore or robbed or messed with or anything like that. Where they're going to find plenty of labor, plenty of qualified labor, and where it's going to be a more small town vibe. I really think there are lots of places that can benefit from that kind of thing that are not in so good a place that one or two of those good ass businesses coming there is going to necessarily result in a bunch of fucking development and shit that turns it into a big city. Of course, you also have to consider the Malthusian paradox, right? Like, if you provide, like, the more services you provide, the more population you can support. The more population you can support, the more services are demanded to make up for the shortfalls. The more services are demanded, the more population, blah, 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 blah. It goes on from there. I do think that there are things, though, that a government could do to sort of navigate our way out of the Malthusian paradox. I bet that's the real reason. Guys, I have a vision. From this great state will come cans of delicious tea. And someone replied, "What are cans?" Mormons even settled Las Vegas. That's true. Mormons believe a lot more nutty stuff than people think. It's not just the usual Christian nuttiness. There's extra nut. Oh yeah, there's a lot of extra nut in Mormonism, that's for sure. And you can take that how you will. Extra wives need extra nut. That's true. Extra wives do need extra nut. Why does weed have to taste so good, y'all? The Book of Mormon sounds like a Bible thing, but it's not a Bible thing. Are you talking about the literal Book of Mormon, or are you talking about the, you're talking about the literal Book of Mormon, or are you talking about the movie, or play, or whatever it was? Today I had a girl tell me that she was, and I quote, not messing with the vibe over text. What the fuck? Not messing with the vibe. What does it mean? That's my question. I'm talking about the literal Book of Mormon. Oh, yeah. No, yeah. I mean, well, Mormons claim the Book of Mormon is some Christian shit. Mormons claim the Book of Mormon is a canonical book of the Bible. I live in Mormon land. Tell me about it. Oh, dude, I forget about that. I forget Riley Weston lives in Mormontopia. Good old Utah. Anyway, I think I'm going to go ahead and get off here, y'all. Thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you guys for chilling. But I'm going to head out. I will see you guys later.